You are watching the Vodka stream.
Oh, what is happening, everybody? It is Friday. How's everybody doing out there? Thank you for joining. Oh, do we have a good one tonight? For sure. It's going to be a good one. I mean, especially with that recent article that came out, and something else just kind of came out too when it came to Marvel that we'll discuss tonight, of course. But thank you guys for joining. You guys are awesome. TGI freaking F. Cheers. Got a little vodka here. I'm not going to do my normal Q&A thing because obviously I got a guest tonight. And very anxious to talk to him, get his input on everything that's going on, of course, when it comes to Marvel Studios, as well as other things too. We won't just talk about Marvel, we'll talk about other nerdly stuff and whatever. So cheers, guys. Got the vodka. All right. Let's see who we got here tonight. All right. We got Ryan. What is happening? Good to see you. We got Super Gorillas Vlogs. Yes. Appreciate it, man. We got Nate. What's going on? Can't wait to hear all the thoughts on the MCU explosion that happened this week. Also listen to Brandon Davis's podcast, Phase Zero podcast, of course. Listen to it. It's awesome. All right. We got Keely Chow right here. Good to see you. We got Darkness Under the Wind. Great to see you too. Hey, Mama Film Junkies here. Good to see you, Mom. Always great to see you in the chat. What's going on, Brandon? We got Phil right here. We got Miss Lisa Jackson. Yeah, can't complain. I mean, as long as I could just do this, right? I mean, obviously, daytime work is kicking my butt, kicking my ass a little bit, but it's not too bad. Not too bad, but yeah, as long as I'm just doing. Hey, Jason McKenzie, always helping out the pirate ship. Thank you, sir. So cheers to you. Ready for the $50 super chat right there. Always much appreciated. Always much appreciated for sure. Friday, that's what I'm talking about. What's going on, Max? What up? How are you doing? I'm doing good. Glad to hear you're doing good. And yeah, you guys can just ask quick questions real quick. I mean, I'll do a little quick thing, but we'll get Brandon in here in just a little bit and start talking about some things. All right. Yes, the Echo trailer. That's another thing that we'll be probably discussing, of course, because that did get released today with the new poster. And you know what? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. After hearing that show was sounding like it was kind of in trouble, similar to the Daredevil show. Yeah, they really whoever cut that trailer definitely grabbed me because I wasn't sure what to expect when it came to the Echo trailer. But man, was that just something like, whoa, what? Like that thing? I was like, that definitely ain't a family show that they're putting on right there. What's going on, Stephanie T? Happy freaking Friday meeting party. Yeah. I know I broke that one down Wednesday. Sorry I didn't do a members only stream like I do every Wednesday, but it just, like I said, daytime work was just kicking my ass. What's going on, Cortez? The packed week, Gen V. I know I'm trying to catch up on Gen V. I think I'm 3 episodes in. And then, of course, Invincible came out, and then we got Loki. I still haven't watched the new episode of Loki, which, of course, I know it's fantastic because that's definitely what's working when it comes to the MCU. And then, of course, the return of Invincible. So I got to catch up. There's got things I got to catch up on for sure. So what's going on, Shane? Yeah, go Rangers. I mean, hey, that's who I was rooting for when it came to the World Series, just because they have Bruce Bochy. That is. Of course, you guys know, if you follow baseball, he was the Giants manager for many years and won 3 World Series with the Giants, 2010, 12, 14. Am I got that right? I'm a fan of the team. Or is it 8? I don't know. I know it was every 2 years. I'm blanking on it right now. But so it just kind of shows you right there. And that's why I was like, anytime, when the Rangers moved on to the World Series, and then when they won the World Series, I tagged the Giants. I mean, just being a petty fan, but I was like, look what you guys did, Giants organization. You ousted out Bochy. He retires, comes back 2 years later. I think 2 years later or 4 years later, and wins the team that he joins a World Series. Meanwhile, the Giants just, they fired the manager that replaced Bochy, and now we got a new manager coming in, and it's like, oh boy, jeez. Blade movie has enough. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. Hey, we got Clayface right here. Yeah, hey, Leroy. How the hell are you? Not quite my middle name and not quite how I spell my last name, but hey, I get what you're saying there. Yeah. All right. Doing pretty good. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Echo looks incredible. Looking pretty good. Oh yeah, well, there's also that Godzilla poster that showed up today too with the new Godzilla movie that's going to be coming out. Looking forward to that as well. So yeah, I'm only one episode behind when it comes to Loki. I haven't watched this week's episode, and I will. I'll catch it. I'll watch it this weekend for sure. Just haven't had time to catch it quite yet. I should have watched it last night. I don't know why I didn't. I think I was just a little too beat. So, ahoy, hoy! What's going on, Mr. Alex Lobo? And then of course we got Antonio right here, and we got Legend right here. All right. Glad to see you guys are here. Appreciate that. Like I said, cheers. Cheers. Oh, wow. Sorry, I was just looking at Twitter right now. There's a Spider-Verse live in concert at the Pantages in Hollywood. Wow. That'd be cool to see. I didn't know that was happening, but yeah. All right, let me set my tweet, and then of course, I'm bringing my guest here, has joined the stream. All right. Where is it at? Oh, hold on a sec. Should get my links ready. Yeah, sure. Okay. Meow. All right. Do that. Post it right there. All right, guys, let's go ahead and bring in my guest. He's been here before, so he's returning, which is awesome, and I'm glad to have him, especially this week. Mr. Brandon Davis, how's it going, sir? Woo!
It's good, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Your statues that you have behind you, I'm so jealous. So jealous. Those are just beautiful statues that you have behind you.
Thank you, dude. This is probably my favorite thing ever. And this is probably number 2. Oh, so, yeah, man, I got to see this one actually while they were still finishing it.
No shit.
I got to go to a sideshow and I saw like the version that wasn't finished being painted yet. And I was like, I got to have that one day. Yeah. And then like a year and a half later.
Yeah. I was like, I caught one of your podcasts and I saw that behind you and I was like, one of these days, maybe I'll have that behind me.
Oh man.
So beautiful. So
I'm rooting for you. They make me happy.
I appreciate it. But of course, Brandon Davis from comicbook.com, Phase Zero podcast. How is the podcast going, by the way?
It's good, man. It's been interesting. I mean, recently we've started doing a couple extra episodes a week because of Loki, and we're like, it's been interesting because not only has there been a lot of MCU news lately, but also Loki has been really good, and we've been able to book some really cool guests and just put a bit more, I think, effort and oomph into the show and even more enthusiasm than we have been. And we're seeing great it's been cool, man, because the numbers, the MCU as a whole slipped a bit. So I don't know how to apply to our podcast too, but right now we're going up every week and it's really fun. It's really motivating to see like the positivity. And I mean, we're always just going to be honest. So if something's not good, we're going to tell it like it is in the comment section. We'll tell us if we don't. So Loki being good certainly helps. It builds a community, and I
tell you what. When it comes to Loki, I mean, I try to keep up as weekly. I haven't watched the latest episode, but when season 2 came back, and then I finally caught up on. I think it was only 2 episodes in. I mean, I tweeted out, I'm like, this is what's working. It's top tier. This is the storytelling and the way that they're telling the story. I'm like, I'm so shocked on like how they've handled the character so perfectly, I guess you could say, because when we first met him, let's face it, it's not the guy that it's not the character that we know now for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed, at least to some degree, most of the Disney Plus stuff. It's definitely not been as good as I've wanted it to be, but Loki hasn't missed, man. Loki's been the one that it's like, why can't you guys do this with all of these?
That's what everybody's kind of asking for right here. And we're gonna definitely dive into some of that. But I did want to ask, like, just talking about just movies and stuff like that, before we start diving into all the madness. So what's on Brandon Davis's top list, at least for 2023 when it comes to movies right now?
None of them are comic book movies.
Good, right? That's kind of why I wanted to ask you the question, because we talk comic books like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And yet when it comes to this year, I mean, there's a shift that's going on right now, man.
If you go to top 5, I'll have 2 in there, but if you just do top 3, I don't have any. The Creator, Oppenheimer, and what was number 3? I remember what number 3 was. I just forgot what my number 3 was. But then what was my number 3?
Dude, don't you hate when that happens?
Dude, I literally was like, wait a second. I had a top 3. It was so easy. But then I have Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Spider-Verse, but I don't even remember what.
Mission Impossible?
No, I thought Mission Impossible was incredibly well made, but the story in Mission Impossible was so damn cheesy. Like, it's just undeniable. That AI storyline, like that nightclub scene, fully lost me. But everything, but that said, I loved the movie still, but I recognize it was pretty cheesy.
It is kind of funny because, like, when I walked out of Mission Impossible, I was like, man, that was what I wanted and stuff like that. But then when I started and I gave my first reaction, I reviewed it, and then just sitting with it, I haven't watched it again since. But yeah, I started kind of thinking about, like, the way that they offed, Rebecca Ferguson's character. Spoiler alert, it's been out for a bit, but
on Blu-ray now, it's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. The way that they offed her, and then of course, the AI stuff it had its cool moments, but then like the airport scene was fantastic. But yeah, I agree with you where the week it did get it in like the second act, when all that stuff's happening in the nightclub scene, it kind of just goes like a little like, okay, and then it goes back up again, of course, absolutely, training and everything. But yeah, there definitely is a second act where it just kind of, all right, it dips down a little bit. But
Haley Atwell was fantastic.
Jesus Christ, did I mean, I already was crushing on her, but I fell in love like after. I mean, you crush on her from all the Agent Carter stuff and everything, but man, in that movie, I was like, I think I'm in love.
Yeah, that was one of those where I was even getting a little nervous to walk into that interview room. I was like, she's so fantastic.
Yeah.
What if I turn red?
Yeah, I can only imagine what it's like interviewing some of these people. Like what do you do to prepare yourself? Because I mean, I've interviewed through, this kind of medium, and some, not a lot of people, of course, not like what you're doing over there, comic book, but what like that, or how do you psych yourself out? Are you doing like push-ups? Are you jumping up and down, doing jumping jacks? I mean, what are you doing before you walk into these rooms?
It's been an interesting kind of learning curve because I had to mess up a few interviews early on.
Of course.
Unfortunately, I feel like I was so lucky to get my job back. I started in 2015. Like, that version of me would not get hired by Comic Book now because Comic Book has grown so much.
Yeah.
And they were like pretty much brand new. Like, I was one of the first people they hired, and pretty much the first on camera talent they ever had. And somehow they're still stuck with me. But I kind of get ready for it. I mean, first you go watch the movie, obviously, but then I try not to over prepare because I'll psych myself out. So it's like I watch all this stuff. I have a base knowledge. I feel like I'm pretty confident in that. I know my audience, and I follow a few like fan accounts and stuff to see what people are talking about. I research what's going on our website, what has kind of moved the needle the most, what people want to hear about. I go on YouTube. I look up what's a really good clip that people are talking about. How do I kind of find a way to talk about that? Whether there's some viral moment I could key into. And I also just try to find unique ways to also make it kind of personal.
Yeah.
As personal as you can get in 4 minutes. Like, I'm not about to make it so, yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, the one time I did, it was during, obviously, the pandemic. I got invited to a junket for Mortal Kombat, and I interviewed, I can't remember their real names, but who played Kano and Sonya. So I was trying to do that whole thing. And they, like I said, your time is limited. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, I was like, all right, there's gotta be a joke, gotta do something.
Yeah.
And I just basically asked, I forgot his name, who played Kano. I was like, how does it feel to play like the universe's biggest douche? I just said it. And like he laughed and she God, I forgot her name too. But it's like she just kind of went, oh, like I remember when I was editing the clip, I saw her face go, oh, did he just say that? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's true.
Sometimes you gotta roll the dice.
Dude,
You
have to be unique because I mean, what I notice when I see these junkets and what I like about you is like, you actually do you ask a different question that nobody else is asking. And I could tell that you shoot for like, hey, they're getting asked the same questions over and over and over again. So you really got to make it fun. And when you do something like that, I mean, it helps. It helps them because then they're like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
No, I appreciate that. I also I look at interviews from like my colleagues like Kevin McCarthy and Jake Hamilton and Perry Nemiroff. I think those three and Kirsten Acuna at Insider, those four people ask really thoughtful questions. Like their minds connect dots that I wish mine could. And I'll kind of like chug a bunch of coffee and watch a couple interviews they've done with completely different people than the people I'm about to interview. And it just kind of gets the wheels turning a bit. And then I'll also, on top of the coffee, drink a bunch of pre-workout if I really want the interviews to be high energy. And then I go in there fueled up on C4 and coffee beans. And it's like, well, how can we sweat through this interview? But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's trying to make it personal. This is such a cold way to look at it. I don't even know if I should say this out loud, but this is such a cold way to look at it. But it's so transactional. It's almost like you have to go in and push the right buttons and get out what you need. And that's not the way like I try to look at it because I want to go in and be a person. And I think the best interviews are the ones where it is personal. But at the same time, I had one really bad interview right early in my career. And I had a boss at the time who was like, hey, man, you got to obviously let this go, but like learn from it too. You got to walk in there. You're not there to be friends, even though you want to be friendly. You got to remember, like, only ever take the interview or like some jokes and things as far as the other person that you're interviewing does, because it's not about me. I'll never want to make the interview about me. No. That's just not my job. I'm not, Jimmy Fallon or James Corden or Jimmy Kimmel or one of these guys who has their own show where people come to see them. People don't watch the stuff to see me. Like, no. I know the biggest way to get views on my interview is to get a good interaction, to put the talent over, to find something interesting, some piece of new information. And that's going to be it. So I'm always seeking what is the new thing that I can get them to talk. Like I did an interview today with the guy who wrote Loki, Eric Martin. I had 8 minutes with him. I wrote down 11 questions and I was running through it with one of my colleagues. And I was like, man, like 7 of these questions are questions I think he's going to be like, I can't say that. I can't say this. I don't want, just things that are like too specific, too unanswered. And so I was like, I got to rework these. I got to find ways to rephrase some of this to make it answerable and hopefully also a little tease that'll give us a good, headline. Because yes, I know everybody hates the word clickbait, and I don't think it's clickbait as long as there's substance to it. But you need the headline too.
You do need the headline. You can't have. I mean, obviously, there's many. Of course, there's like many like publications out there that have like these like headlines that are just totally bullshit and everything like that. But if you get if it is an art, like you have to. I mean, I know a lot of people say this is clickbait, but at the same time, you got to be like, no. I mean, this is still what is.
And clickbait exists, like absolutely. Does. But when I think people hear that I need to go in there and get a headline, and they're thinking like, this guy's trying to bait somebody. He's trying to create a god. Like, no, absolutely not. I'm trying to find the thing that hasn't been said before, the interesting angle on this, because that's my job, is to go in there, create the moment, get the piece of information that creates a headline that gets your attention. Because there's so many people doing this. When you go to a junket, man, well, nowadays it's a little slimmer because post-COVID, they invite a few less people. But in 2019, when you go to a junket, there would be, for a studio movie, there's probably 50 outlets that are just more, if not more, that are just going in and out of the room. Every 4 minutes, someone else is doing an interview. How do you find something unique? You need to find your angle. And that's kind of the biggest thing, is finding the unique spin, the personal spin, the thing your audience wants to hear. And then people get mad at me. They're like, why do you ask about Marvel? And I'm like, well, if you clicked on the question where I didn't ask about Marvel, I wouldn't.
That's the thing. They're always going to be upset. Trust me. I know that.
And that's kind of on me too. I got to get a better question then if you didn't click on it.
But I mean, you're never going to please everybody. That's the thing.
Now I'm fired up.
Yeah, I know, right? I got you fired up. Let's go, man. I remember I interviewed Joe Manganiello.
Oh, that's cool.
This was like 2 years ago or something like that. It was for like, it was obviously a charity thing this was around the time when the Snyder Cut came out and everything. And I got tasked to interview Joe, and I'm like, this guy is intimidating. Oh boy. So, and I was like, all right, what's the one thing that I know that we would have a connection with? And I knew he was a big Metallica fan. I'm a big Metallica fan. So just right off the bat, I started just talking about Metallica just to break the ice. And it totally just like, all right, cool. That was it. We were going back and forth about Metallica for like 5 minutes or maybe less. I don't know. But it just kind of like got everything at ease.
Yeah.
At ease. And then I think before it even wrapped up, I was like, what would be Deathstrokes, or what would be, Slade's favorite Metallica song? And I already knew the answer because I was like, and he said Disposable Heroes is on the Master of Puppets soundtrack album. And it's, it's about fallen soldiers and everything like that. I'm like, that's going to be what he says. And sure enough, he did. And I was like, there it is. I knew it. And it was just ended up being a good interview, but yeah, it was a little intimidating right off the bat. So like you said, you just got to find that little angle, that little angle, and I think you've done a good job with it too. I especially like it when you take the pictures, especially like reading the comic book of who, those, I mean, how did you come up with that idea? I mean, I love those pictures.
The first time I did it was with Zachary Levi after Shazam. I got to host a screening of Shazam, and I asked the Warner Brothers rep, I was like, do you think after we do the little Q&A, he'd take a picture with me in the comic book? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. They were pushing that movie to the moon back then.
Oh,
so they were super game for whatever. And so I actually had a friend who I didn't have a comic with me. I just had the idea, and she scooped up the comic for me, which was so clutch. And it ended up being a Justice League comic, which had Shazam and Black Adam on the cover, because I wanted to get that so I could write the caption just talking about ideas for Shazam 2. And I did. And I ultimately ended up putting my hand over the damn cover. So that was the lesson learned. I did the same thing with the Infinity Gauntlet book with the Russo brothers. And those were the first two. Like a month later, I did it with the Russos at CinemaCon. And then after that, I was like, I got to not put my damn hand over the cover. And so now it's like, every actor except one has been down for it.
Who's the one?
That was shitty. That sucked. But everybody else has been super cool.
See, now I want to know. I know you're not going to say it, but
I don't like playing that game.
What are you drinking right now? Drink a little bit more, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I'm going to be wondering.
No, I appreciate that though. That was something that's like my favorite thing I get to do, because it does feel like the one thing that is kind of my thing, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I get to post something that people kind of expect from me, when the people who follow me and don't just follow like comic book and the podcast and everything, like my person, people who are like taking the time to follow and engage with my content. I'm like, hell yeah, I get to actually do something that feels like kind of my thing. That's probably my favorite thing that has come of this whole thing.
Yeah, no, it totally is. I mean, when I saw you starting to do that, I'm like, that's awesome that you have you when you interview these actors either on the red carpet or whatever the hell, and you just do that little, hey, let's take a picture and let's have the comic book and like we're like looking at it, and I was like, that's creative. I really love those pictures.
I appreciate those
pictures. But before we get into the MCU stuff, I did want to talk a little bit about the DCU stuff.
Ooh, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit, because obviously, the last time you were on here and we discussed, that was like right in the heart of the Snyder Cut stuff, and we didn't know what the hell was going to be happening with DC or anything. This was like 2.5 years ago, so it was like we were just excited, like, hey, we get this 4-hour version of a Justice League movie, which is fantastic. And then a lot of us have accepted, like, okay, and then now Zach's over at Rebel Moon. Great, we're looking forward to that. I know you have, you've seen some things when it comes to Rebel Moon that maybe not some other people have too. So tell me you talking. Yeah. I know. Oof, cannot wait for that. But if you want to talk about some Rebel Moon, go for it,
man. Did they release the Red Band trailer online?
Dude, that's the thing I've heard. I've even talked about it on the channel.
It's not online, right?
It's not online. They only have the PG-13, but I know that there is a red band trailer. I've because I know some people over the Screen Rant and stuff like that might have been there. Yeah, there's a red band trailer out there, folks. Just in case you didn't know this,
It's like really red band too.
Yes, I mean, think about it. I've heard, I've been told the what is shown in those trailers, or in that trailer for sure. I think they'll probably save it for when they announce when the director's cut or the Snyder cut of it comes out. I'm guessing, but who knows when that's gonna be. Right now they're just pushing like, hey, we got this right here that's coming. I mean, obviously we're probably gonna get a trailer for a week from now at the what's the event that's happening, the Netflix event that's happening.
Oh, what do they call that?
I forgot what it's called.
Yeah,
Next
a couple of events.
Like that. Yeah, so I know like there's supposed to be, I think on the 12th.
I'm sure they'll have something there.
They'll have another.
Right now, Zack is the star. I mean, like,
it's
they're obviously always going to push Zack Snyder as like a name with a movie. A lot of directors in recent years have been starting to get pushed out for publicity through marketing and just different things like that. But it's Zack Snyder. Like they know you. That's a name you cash in on as Netflix, as a marketing team, as a publicity team. You put Zack out there, and right now that's the only person they can put out there.
True.
So I'm sure there will be more from Zack too on that.
It's smart, and then not to mention it was smart on Zack's behalf. Just the fact that he slapped his name on the Justice League movie. It's like, dude, now he's just like the Snyder. When the Snyder cut phenomenon was happening, it's just like the fact that that's so pop culture now he branded his name, so it's like, yeah, Netflix, you better throw his name out there as much as possible to sell this movie. And I read today that it might get a theatrical.
It's really interesting because I sat.
You almost said something.
I was under the impression that he didn't really care, that he didn't want a theatrical version.
I know about this. Yeah.
So I don't know. That was surprising news today that might, which it would be awesome if it did. I can't imagine he would fight against it. He may just be playing ball with Netflix and saying like, Netflix has given me the chance to do whatever I want, so I will fully say, let's do whatever Netflix wants.
See, yes,
totally possible.
Brandon. Yes, I mean, that's the thing is like, yes, I know it was like there's this big thing and it's been revealed. There's been quotes out there where Zack has said like, it's made for streaming. It's this, that streaming. I'm like, okay, but Zack's always been a big screen guy. And I think it's just like you nailed it right there. And I've even said it too. It's like Netflix gave him free range to do what he wanted to do with this movie. I mean, the fact of the matter is this is a passion project. He's been wanting to do this for a long time. And he wanted to do it in his way, and they allowed him to do it in his way, where he's going to get 2 cuts of his movie. Like literally, there's a Snyder cut built into this
out of the gate.
Yeah, right out of the gate. And they're totally like, all right, we're 100% with this. So, but I mean, I think at the time, we're like, yeah, we're not going to do theatrical, so you got to kind of sell it like that. And I think he's just like, all right, I'll play, I'll play ball. And I think that's what he's doing, and it's nothing against Zack. I mean, I think
everybody's had a boss in their life. If you act like saying,
exactly.
I'm making a streaming movie for the damn streaming service that's paying you millions of dollars I don't know how much he got paid. I assume it was quite a bit, but also giving you even more millions of dollars to make your movie that you like. Those are not cheap movies, dude. Road Moon was not cheap. So it's okay. I think it's okay for him to say, listen, I made this knowing it was going to streaming. Go. But even if deep down he's like, I want you to see on the big screen, I bet inevitably at some point we probably will.
I think so. And then just reading that today, I'm like, all right, please, hopefully. So we'll see what happens when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Zack was on here. It was before the Full Circle event. And, I mean, it was kind of funny because, I did bring up James Gunn and how he was like kind of feeling about that. And, it was just kind of interesting because obviously they know each other. They've worked together. You even said like James is a buddy. And, it's just got, especially with everything that's happening. I mean, I'm so happy for Zack being over at Netflix, creating new things. And then we have James Gunn, who's now handling the DCU, which, maybe it wasn't like my first choice, but at the same time, I was going like, well, he's seeing how the Marvel machine works. He's been a part of that, a big part of that. Like, especially when it was revealed that, he kind of helped do, with the Infinity Stones, crafting, starting that story and helping that story. paving the way for that story, and Kevin Feige handing him scripts and saying like, hey, can you read this? Give me notes and everything. I think it was like, okay, so I mean, Gunn coming over to the DCU, we know that he has unique knowledge when it comes to the source material. So I was kind of like, okay, let's see what the guy can do. You know,
I think people are immediately thinking of like a lot of his older stuff, and even Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, and even Guardian stuff, where there's like the turd jokes about Drax and Peacemaker's making the jokes Peacemaker makes. I don't think James Gunn thinks Superman needs to do that.
no.
I think James Gunn has a pretty good understanding of characters, and I've yet to see him miss in the Marvel universe. So, I mean, I'm kind of at a wait and find out. I'm not going to lie. When Henry Cavill came back, I was pretty damn excited. Black Adam, I enjoyed Black Adam more than most people, I think. I don't think it was any kind of incredible film by any means, but I thought it was fun. I thought The Rock was good as Black Adam because it pretty much allowed him to just do the things he's actually good at as an actor, since he abandoned roles like Pain and Gain, like which I think was his best performance. But now that he wants to be a tough guy, Black Adam let him be a tough guy, like the ultimate tough guy. Oh, that was cool. I enjoyed it. But then when you get Henry Cavill back, I really bought in, man. I was like, dude, maybe they really have a direction here. And I know they had plans, and I know what the plans were, and they sounded sick. Like they sounded really cool. And so it was like, I like James Gunn. I think he's going to do a good job. I think we don't have any reason to doubt what he's going to do with the DC universe, at least in my opinion. Peacemaker is probably my favorite streaming show of any of the comic book.
I was surprised by Peacemaker when I heard
dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, who the fuck thought that was going to be something? Because when I heard like, oh yeah, they're gonna make a Peacemaker series, I'm like, really? I'm like, that was like, right. I mean, that character sucks. Like, I mean, I liked how like it was portrayed, but how are they gonna revolve like around that? And then when I watched the series, I'm like, I kind of like that a lot. Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
like,
biggest surprise in the past few years in terms of comic book streaming. But I think that's just like Peacemaker needed that tone, that violent, edgy, ridiculous, R-rated humor, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, James Gunn has a refreshing way to do it, where it's like, especially at the time people are like, oh, you can't make comedies anymore. It's like, yeah, look, he's doing it. He's proving you can make edgy comedies. But yeah, I mean, I think after Black Adam, I was pretty excited because I was like, man, they had sequels, they had spin-off, they had all kinds of stuff coming. Yes. And then it got wiped away. I finally went out and bought a damn Henry Cavill Superman Hot Toys because I was like, I could start a DC collection because they might actually keep going. And then it's like a week after it came, he was out. Oh, look at that.
There's my little McFarlane that I have right.
And all that said, I'm complaining because I finally felt like I bought in. I felt a little tricked. But it's not the first time DC and Warner Brothers have made us feel that.
I mean, it was such an interesting time because, I mean, that was like, yeah, it was almost it was like a year ago when, I mean, it was all announced. It was all, I mean, obviously, I remember, I think, didn't you ask The Rock at Comic-Con last year, like, who's the Superman? And was that you that asked that?
Oh, yeah. I asked him about Superman Henry Cavill, and I know they're friends, so I knew he'd talk about it. And so he said that Henry Cavill is this generation Superman in that interview. And I was like, that's right. Sweet, cool. And then they kind of gave it away that he was in the movie by the time it even came out. He was doing the press tour, talking all about Superman. And that obviously they knew it would help sell tickets, but they were going to make Man of Steel 2.
Yeah.
And but listen, I am of the belief, I'm so glad we got Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think that's a phenomenal film. Definitely a little too long, but it's a phenomenal film. I thought it was, dude, I think that Flash moment, one of the best moments in comic movie history. I love Zack's visual style. I think it was great. I think that the story of the DCEU is just going to be unmet potential. That's going to be its legacy. And that sucks because there were so many good actors in it. There were great plot points that Zack had laid out that we're at this point, I think, probably never going to see. I can't imagine they're going to go back to it. But the question I have is like, what if Superman Legacy flops? Which I have no reason to believe it will. But then do we just start again with meddling and saying, hey, let's change course?
Yeah, that is the ultimate question. And, you know, and a lot riding on James Gunn's shoulder. I mean, like the fact that during the pandemic, his hair went from like, you know, brown to like white. And then now it's like, man, what's going to happen in 2 years?
When, like, have hair.
He said, yeah, he's gonna be bald. He's gonna
play fast himself as Lex Luthor.
Exactly. He's gonna be wearing ball caps like Feige. It's just like covering it right there. And I'm like, there's a lot riding on it. But the thing that I like when he's answered questions from people asking questions either on social media or whatever, it's just first I like the fact that he said, like, when he got brought over, when they brought him over to DC, they wanted him to do Superman. He's like, nah, I don't even know, and he turned it down. And he was like, Suicide Squad, obviously that's more of his bag, obviously. And then all of a sudden, when after things were like, going and going, and then all of a sudden he said he like kind of just like, oh, wait a minute, I think I know how I could do it, and bringing it. I mean, let's face it, Superman, one of the hardest characters to bring on the big screen. We've seen, I mean, over the years, seems like Batman, they're just like, do it, and let's see. And there's not really yeah, you could say Batman and Robin's the worst iteration of Batman, sure, but there's something about it where I could still, if it's on TV, I could be like, there's a Bat credit card. They did that, and laugh. I can laugh at all the, the stupid shit that they put in there. To me, when I watch Batman and Robin, I'm like, this is an updated 66 Batman show. This is what this is. They updated.
It's campy,
Yeah. I can still enjoy it. But when it comes to Superman, it just seems like it seems like they've been able to nail Superman in TV more than in films. TV seems like they've nailed. Like I'm a fan of Lois and Clark. I remember that was appointment viewing for me. Like every Sunday night, I revisited it when it was on HBO Max. I never really got into Smallville.
We're a Smallville guy.
I'm not a Smallville guy. I couldn't. I'm going to jump into it now that I'm older. But when it came out, I was like, I can't accept this. What? No, this is not. What? Lex Luthor and him? No.
They got so far. They started having Bizarro on that show at one point.
Yes.
They liked it. Like
they brought in like all. I remember like hearing they brought in Aquaman and they brought in like a. And I'm like, really? They did that? But then, like, I always hear from people like, oh, yeah, but it's so good. Like, you got to watch it. And I'm like, certain seasons, yeah, of course. But I was like, I couldn't accept it. But it had such a big fan base. And it had, I don't know how many seasons. It went on for a bit. And then, of course, you have Superman and Lois, which, of course, was announced that they're going to be ending it after next season. And that's a great show.
He's great.
It just seems like they always seem to nail Superman. I mean, Superman the animated series obviously is just fantastic. I mean, obviously animation. I do stream every Sunday with Scott, and we're going through all the animated stuff and just revisiting that animated series. It's like, oh man, they really just nail it when it comes to the character. But film has always been it's always been hard because it's like, well, obviously we had Superman Returns and. There's things in there that are great, but then the overall, it's like, the airplane sequence, yeah, good job. And then everything else, all right, you just rehashed Donner, And then Snyder comes in and goes, well, let's do something different. And then I'm like, that's what I'm talking about right there. But then, of course, it's divisive.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's such a hard character. So I am really anxious to see what Gunn is cooking up when it comes to the character.
I expect Guns to be quite different from what we've seen before.
Yeah.
I'm kind of expecting like a cartoonish DC universe not in like a comedic, we're making light of everything way, but I'm expecting him to really just embrace that these are comic book characters.
Yeah.
Like these, I really think, and I think Superman is a tough character to handle because he's so powerful and he's like, I mean, I think Zack did it really well because he relied on relationships to make him feel human. And I think that's another thing you have to do. And it seems Gunn might already be doing that based on the cast he's building around him. He's going to have relationships with other superheroes already. So, and he's got to have weaknesses. So
that's what I was like, and that's what I keep on saying when I talk about it is the fact that we're not going to get an origin story, which is great. We've already seen that. We've already heard that. This is already an established Superman, and there's already other heroes that he's going to be interacting with. So I'm like, when everybody is always going like, not my Superman, which was what a lot of, everybody's always about either the Christopher Reeve or, of course, Henry Cavill. Those are the two that are on a pedestal. And as much as I love those two iterations, I'm like, okay, you guys wanted something different. It sounds like this is something different when you already have an established Superman with other heroes within the world. So I'm like, already right there, you're grabbing me, and I'm like, good. I like that. You have a Green Lantern. You have a, what's his name? I forgot his name. Yeah, there we go, him. And then of course you have Hawk Girl already, and
Mr. Terrific.
Like, yes, Mr. Terrific. I mean, they're already going to be like, and like these characters that nobody knows too, really.
And that's another thing Gunn does well.
Yes,
another thing. I mean, he's launching his thing with Creature Commandos. Bro, I got Creature Commandos over there. You know how much I was able to get for like $7? Like,
it is ballsy. It is ballsy, and a lot of people are like, "Why is he doing this with such obscure characters?" But I'm like, well, why not? I mean, when it came to Guardians of the Galaxy, nobody knew who the fuck they were. When we saw
who Peacemaker was.
Yeah, nobody knew
who Peacemaker was.
And somehow, like when it came to, I mean, now Peacemaker's in fucking Fortnite or
I sniped him earlier today on the OG map.
It's like, all right. So when it comes to James Gunn, I'm like, he has, a little bit of an ability to take like these characters that nobody knows and bring them into the zeitgeist of like, hey, this is look at this guy. So that's where I'm kind of going. All right, if he's handling Superman, yes, but like you said, it's like if it flops, what do they do next? And I don't think it'll flop. I'm just wondering like how, and a lot of people, of course, always say you got to get to that $1 billion, mark. But at the same time, I'm like, well, now in this day and age, I think you just got to make a profit.
Isn't the only $1 billion comic book movie? I guess there would be two since like COVID, which are Shang-Chi, not Shang-Chi, Spider-Man and Batman, right? Isn't it? Those are the only two. And I could be wrong. But off the top of my head, those are the only two I can think
Joker,
of.
But that's
but that was pre-COVID, right?
That was pre-COVID, yeah.
Honestly, you could say pre-COVID, you could say pre-Endgame. I feel like I just think it's undeniable that there is a bit of superhero fatigue and I think that you could blame the quantity of output from Marvel in part for that. But everybody upped their comic book properties. Amazon is in the game now with multiple shows. Like there are superhero things everywhere, so you got to be raising the bar. But now that there's so many, I think that they don't feel like the same event they used to. It's not just a guarantee. They're not like, okay, well, the Marvels is not about to make $1 billion. And the rule of thumb was, okay, if we make a sequel, it's going to make roughly what it made, what the movie before it made, if the movie before it was well received. So we'll probably be in that ballpark. It's not coming anywhere near $1 billion, I don't think. I looked up tickets to the Marvels because I'm not going out to the junket. So I was like, I want to go see this opening weekend. I'll be home. I'll be in town. 2 days ago, tickets have been on sale for like 2 weeks already. The movie comes out next week. There's a 450-seat IMAX theater here where I have bought tickets for Multiverse of Madness, Endgame, Spider-Man, Shang-Chi, Black Widow, all these movies. I went and saw them in theaters. And usually if you don't buy those tickets day one, you're sitting up like, that Willem Dafoe meme. But dude, the most tickets I saw for one of these screenings sold in a 400-seat theater I looked at every screening Thursday and Friday at this theater was 18 seats. And I don't think that's just the Marvels. I think everybody's ready to hate the Marvels. There's a line of people undeniably ready to say the Marvel sucks even before they see it. But
they already have their reviews written.
Yeah, there's a line of people who want to see the movie fail. There's no denying it. Personally, I don't think the trailers for the Marvels are even that great. I like Carol. I like Kamala. I'm excited for the movie because it's a Marvel movie. But I don't think the trailers have really blown people away. So I think it's a number of things: fatigue, strikes. There's nobody to promote the movies. I think that cast, they would get a whole bunch of toxicity from online, no matter what they said. They could literally just be like, "We're excited for the movie," and people will be like, "Well, you suck, so why?"
Boo! How dare you be excited for the movie you worked on?
We're three women making a movie, and we really hope women get to see our movie. Why do you hate men? Like, bro, shut up. So there's no denying that exists, and anybody who tries to act like that doesn't exist is fooling themselves.
I know.
That's also that's a fact. That's another thing this movie has to fight.
Why you gotta be so woke? I hate that word. I hate that shit.
Just because it's not white dudes in a movie, that means you're woke. You think that's why the MCU is having problems? Because they added women and black people?
No.
No, I
That's
promise
not.
you. The last time that the MCU did that, both movies made billions of dollars in
Oh wait,
2018 and
yeah.
2019.
Remember that one? Those two, I should say. No, but I mean, I remember even talking about this when it came to, like, obviously we were hoping that the strikes were gonna end by now, but sadly, it just seems like it's just not gonna happen. But I thought, man, can you imagine those three like doing the press junkets and how much fun they could have had with promotion? It's like the fact that the Marvels is not going to get that because you have three different personalities, and I really enjoyed Miss Marvel when it came to that series. I thought that was unique. I thought it was very cinematic, and I thought it was pretty damn well done. And I was like, and I really like the character. And I'm like, that's why, I didn't really like Captain Marvel that much. I'll be honest. I was like, it just didn't really work for me. So when it comes to this one, I'm like, I'm here for Kamala for sure, because I
Straight
just
up.
really enjoyed Miss Marvel. Like you said, when I've seen the clips and the trailers, I have not been that impressed. I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to watch it, still going to review it and give my honest opinion. But yeah, it just seems like it's just kind of crazy how this month we get sequel to $1 billion movie, and then next month we also get a sequel to $1 billion movie, and they're both not going to do. They're going to do like a 25%. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, both. It's hard to predict because the Marvels is expected to make like 80 million opening, and I'm like, okay, if it does hit 80 million, how much does it make in its run? Because
Yeah.
Quantumania, I don't remember Quantumania opened to, but it ended up finishing at like 450.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No.
Ant-Man and the Wasp made a lot more money. What Aquaman, the first one made like 1.2 billion or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
1.3 billion. I don't see that even clearing
Nope.
750.
No.
I
Probably
just
wouldn't get that far.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's coming anywhere near 750.
Yeah.
But also, that's another one that the press tour for that would be. They got a lot of stuff that it's like, well, someone's going to go ask some hard questions before they open it up. Like, I imagine that would be one where they'd open it up to like Variety or, some of the trades before they even let the rest of the press in, so that the hard questions could be answered before everyone comes in and asks their versions of them.
See, that's the bad part. Especially with recent stuff, because obviously only James Wan can talk about that movie. I feel bad for James Wan.
Dude, he's like the nicest guy in the world, too.
Yeah, you've met
And
him,
a
right?
very talented filmmaker.
Yes, I love him. I mean, like, Jesus, I've been there from the beginning. Saw. I mean, the fact that I love that him and Lee Winnall were like, hey, let's make a horror movie. How do we make it cheap? Well, let's just have most of it take place in a fucking rundown bathroom. There you go. And they just made one of my all-time favorite fucking horror movies. And I've been a fan of James Wan. I've watched every one of his movies, like the Conjuring franchise. I like Malignant, even though, like, I remember it was like for a while everybody was shitting on it, like, oh, he's got one of the worst movies coming out. I watched it and went, what are you talking about? That guy nailed 80s camp horror big time. And then
it was hilarious,
dude, and then it still managed to do a great twist and still managed to do that.
What was his name? Gabriel?
Yes, exactly. That scene in the fucking like precinct where it's just fucking everybody up.
Like the camera spinning around.
Yes, because that's James Wan's ultimate shot, is like, he does that rotating shot where like action is happening. And I'm like, what are you even talking about, guys? Like, this movie is fucking just great. And it sucks because he's gonna have to, like, when the junkets start for Aquaman 2, and if the writer strike is not gonna be there, it's like he's gonna have to like answer more about the questions of Amber Heard, what happened behind the scenes, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, God, I feel so bad for him right now. I feel so bad.
He's just the only one who can answer these questions, and it's just like, bro, I didn't sign up for this.
Nope.
I just wanted to make a movie.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly think that James Wan's gonna be like, I don't want to be in the big franchises anymore after this, because he did Fast Furious 7, and then look what happened during that. Obviously that was a totally different scenario. Paul Walker passed away. And then of course he had to change the movie a bit, and that had to be a struggle in and of itself.
What a great job he did too.
He did. I cried. I fucking cried when I watched that.
Man.
Oh,
it's different.
So yeah, it works, and then of course we get Fate of the Furious, and they get chased by a submarine. All right.
Yeah, we don't talk about
Yeah,
after 7 in that franchise.
that's the
Really.
thing. Yeah, like, but for some reason, that fucking franchise will still get me to watch their goddamn
I
movies.
mean, it's just like I feel like I have to. I bought a ticket to Fast X, and I was like, son of a.
Dude, I remember just sitting there going, "Oh my god, you got this, that," and then all of a sudden, the way that it ends, I'm like, "God damn it!" I mean, thankfully, speaking of Jason Momoa, he was the best thing about.
He looked like he was having a blast,
dude.
He looked
Have a
like he was just
great
having
time.
a good time.
Yeah, and
They
that's
thought
what
it was
made
their
that movie.
Infinity War, though, and it wasn't. They really thought that ending was like their Infinity War.
No, yeah, it wasn't that. It wasn't that for sure. But yeah, I know that if it wasn't for Jason Momoa, I would probably be like, I'm done. But you know, cliffhanger, and then yeah, still Jason Momoa is going to be part of that. I'm like, okay, all right, you guys still got me, even though, Jesus Christ, you know what's been happening with this franchise. It's just so much that. But anyways, but yeah, it's just kind of interesting that we're gonna have 2 sequels to $2 billion franchise, $2 billion movies, and it just doesn't seem like the hype is really there. I will give credit to the people who are cutting the Aquaman 2 TV spots. They are pretty damn good.
I hope the movie's good, man. Like, I mean, I have no idea if the movie's going to be good. I think everybody just expects the movie to be bad because of the circus of drama that has surrounded it.
Yeah.
But I don't really know that it indicates the quality. I mean, I haven't heard anything either way, to be honest with you. I haven't heard if it's good or bad. Usually by now I've talked to somebody who's seen one of these films. This one I haven't. I just like, I'm gonna watch it, so I hope it's good. That's how I feel about pretty much all these films. And every once in a while I'll be like, there's no way that's good. But this one is just like, I don't know, man. The first one I enjoyed the first Aquaman. It was fun. It was a little too long. It was a little too long. I thought it was a little indulgent, but also like it was fun. It was crazy, dude. The visuals in these movies are insane.
How that didn't get nominated for Academy Award, I don't even know.
Especially at a time where like VFX workers are being overworked and not even being given time to finish their special effects. Like this movie actually looks pretty damn good. Visually, at least.
I actually was talking to one of the VFX supervisors on that when that was happening, and then just seeing the trailers, stuff like that. We were talking. I'm like, geez. I mean, yeah, they really pulled it off. I mean, to pull off that world, I thought they did a great job when it comes to that. So at least, I mean, I'm hoping that we're going to get that. You know, obviously, we're going to get the visuals that we got in the first. I just worry about are we going to notice the reshoots, you know, because there was the reshoots, and that's, you know, we've seen that with Marvel movies where you can just spot the reshoots. I mean, we saw it big time, obviously, when Justice League came out. Those things were sticking out like they were shot by, you know, a 13-year-old kid in fucking, you know, with a film class or whatever the hell, just like with a movie camera. But yeah, I just hope they don't stick out too much where it's like, you know, and I've heard some things just from, you know, people that I know where it's just like, oh yeah, you know, it's the delays, and I don't know. It just seems like I worry about it, but I just want a good movie.
That is one fair concern. It seems like they've reshot so much of this film, and they've had multiple Batmans, and it seems like there's a chance neither of them are going to be in it.
No, they're not.
Like, you know,
what did you think of the Flash?
The Flash pisses me off. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay.
Because I saw it at CinemaCon 2 months before it came out.
You did. That's right. Yeah.
And they introduced the movie by saying, "This movie's not done. This is a very unfinished version of the film." So I watched it, and I thought those VFX were going to be improved on.
Oh.
So with that in mind, I was like, you know what? That story actually worked for me. The emotional payoff at the end with his mom and the can of tomatoes and all that stuff. I was like, that actually was pretty solid. Thought Ezra kind of overacted a bit, but did a pretty good job as Barry and the other Barry. I thought I assume spoilers are fair game. I thought the major death of the returning character, I guess, not fully, was so unceremonious, almost in the same way Black Widow's was in Infinity War. Because it was like, well, they're time traveling. They're doing the whole point of this is to bring everybody back. So he'll be back, but they never came back. So I thought, but I have my criticisms of it. I thought it was just like a average, slightly above average movie. I thought it was like good, but I when I saw it, I thought the VFX were going to be fixed. Like I thought that it was unfinished, and it turns out I don't even know what was unfinished about the cut that I saw, but
Really?
they like really emphasize this is an unfinished version. And I saw those babies that looked like water falling through the sky, and I was like, okay, well that's gonna obviously look better. This
It'll
looks
be
like
better, yeah.
PlayStation 2, and then they didn't change any of that apparently. And if they
Yeah.
did, it did it. They didn't change it by much.
Yeah, I think the theory was like well, they even said like the Speed Force. I mean, I mean the baby scene, which I mean, to be honest, I thought the baby scene was like fine as a scene, but yeah, I can understand like, when you watch the face is like a little weird, but I know people were like, why the hell would they have a scene like that? I'm like, I think that's a great scene. I thought that was
Oh,
something
yeah.
unique.
No,
The
that scene,
scene
like
itself.
that scene, the purpose of that scene works for me. Like
Yes.
saving babies, you need scenes with heroes saving people. That
Yes.
makes them heroes. I agree. I think you need that kind of stuff. It just needs to look good.
Yeah.
And I know the thing was like, well, it's the Speed Force. It's kind of Barry's perspective in the Speed Force, and I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
well, then so was She-Hulk, because they like, it's just unfinished VFX in my opinion. And I think WB David Zaslav came in and was like, listen, we're hitting the reboot anyway. No more money to this film.
Yeah, that
That's
could have
what
been
I
it.
think. I don't have. That's not it. That's not like someone told me that.
No
That's just.
inside information.
Yeah, I promise that's not a
Wink,
story.
wink, wink. Sorry. No, but no. I get that though. I actually agree with that. They probably could have really shaped up. I mean, like when it came to the Chrono Bowl scenes, I was like, all right, so I can give a little bit more. With the way that a lot of people were shitting on that, I was like, yeah, but I mean, it's not like it was. It kind of, I kind of looked at it as like, well, like especially like in Man of Steel when you saw like Jor-El explaining to his son like what's happening. You see like obviously in the ship they have the technology that makes these 3D models, and I was like, okay, so it's like because you actually could see like there's like dust that forms the bowl, and it's like Speed Force dust, and so maybe not everything's gonna look like realistic. Okay, cool. That's fine. I could totally accept that. But I get why people complain. And I think when it came to the way that Muschietti chose like certain lenses, the way that things were shot, I think that also added like a different kind of, I don't know. It made things not look as great too. Like maybe like some things looked really cool. I don't know. I mean, I'm not the guy to explain like lenses.
Sure, no, I feel the same. I don't
Yeah.
speak film school.
But I was talking to Mr. Stephen Colbert from, Screenwriter. He's big on, he knows, and we were talking about this. He's, oh yeah, he chose this kind of style of lens to shoot. And I'm like, yeah, after watching it a few times, I mean, I still enjoy the movie, but I
Yeah.
could see like certain choices that blended in with certain other choices might have not have worked the way that they thought it was going to work. And like you said, when it came to, Keaton and his death, that happened, I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I mean, it was a cool sequence, but yeah, at the same time, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. So that's how that ended right there. I was kind of like, it was,
I mean, yeah.
yeah.
I enjoyed the movie much more than I didn't. Like I have
Yeah.
criticisms of it, sure, but I thought the movie was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it had a pretty
Cool.
good heart,
Yeah.
but it definitely also had its flaws.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It definitely does. But yeah, let's talk about that Variety article that came out. Where do we start? I think we kind of already started, especially when talking about the VFX houses, which was mentioned in that article. Like when it came to that article, like what was your initial take when you read through that thing?
My first reaction was like, "Oh, holy shit!" Like I was like, "Wow, this is great." But then as I kind of thought about it more, it was like, "Well, none of this is like too shocking, really."
Yeah.
We've known Blade has been going through it. If you've been paying attention, you've known they're trying to figure it out. There's a reason, obviously, why that film hasn't started production, despite having a release date of today, actually, originally.
So was Dune was also supposed to come out.
Yeah.
Also, that's sad. But anyways.
It could have been like Barbenheimer. It would have been Bloon or
Yeah.
Dave,
Well, yeah, Blaine. Yeah. That could have been good. Yeah.
But so the Blade stuff, though, some of it I found interesting. I found it interesting that they considered relegating Mahershala Ali to the fourth lead, the fourth cast member. And
Yeah,
then
when I
the
read
writers
that, I
came
could
out-
not believe it. I could not
one of the,
believe it.
yeah, one of the writers came out and said that he never saw a draft like that, but I don't think that writer has been on the project for a minute, so who knows? I think also a lot of the stuff like the Avengers coming back as a conversation, replacing Majors with Doom, or just replacing Majors and figuring that out. All those like things like that. I feel like with almost every Marvel project, they probably talk about like, oh, should we bring this character back? Should we introduce this character? Should we do this? Should we do that? Like at some point, almost everything is probably considered in some form or fashion. But then again, who knows? Maybe there is actual weight to the fact that they're considering bringing Downey and Johansson back already. Maybe there is something actually really important about the fact that they're talking about pivoting to Doctor Doom instead of Kang. But
well, I mean, when it came to bringing them back, I mean, a lot of people are like, "Well, Secret Wars, right? Secret Wars."
Yeah, that's why I feel like that was already the plan.
Yeah, it feels like. I mean, and I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But it sounds like when it came to this article, like they wanted to bring them back to make multiple movies again, and it's like, oh, we gotta like, but at the same time, it's like, well, maybe not that, because it just seems like I don't think either one of them wants to commit to like, oh yeah, I'm going to sign on for an 8-picture deal or something like that. I don't think they would want to do that. I mean, obviously, if the money's right, the money's right. But at the same time, it's like, is Marvel Studios going to just like dish out like 20 million, 25, 30 million per? They're not going to do that, because right now it's just like everything's not, everything's so if you're just going to throw money at the whole situation and try to bring some people back, that's not the way to go. Secret Wars, that's one thing. It just seems like, I mean, to me, what I keep on saying when I talk about this is like, it just seems like, the Marvels is kind of like a throwaway. It's like, we'll see what happens. That's why it's an hour and 44 minutes. Cut it down, get it out there. Hopefully people enjoy it, see how much money it makes. And then it seems like Deadpool was going to be like the something that Kevin Feige is going, yes, we got to get to Deadpool. We got to like, look what's happening to Deadpool. But then of course that they didn't finish it. And now, I mean, they it's not going to, they moved the release date. So it was like, damn it. And then he's looking at Secret Wars, like that's also the one. And then maybe after that, who knows? I don't know.
I don't think the Marvels, I don't think the Marvels is a throwaway. I think the Marvels is coming at a tough time for them to like put butts in seats. I think there's also stuff in the Marvels that's going to surprise people pretty big. There's some stuff coming in that movie that, if what I've heard is true, is going to be moving this whole story forward pretty surprisingly.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting.
I've heard those things too. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if those end up selling tickets. Like, I have no idea if the movie's good. I hope the movie's good. I don't know what the review score is going to be. I don't know what people are going to be saying about it. I hope people like it. If it's good, obviously that'll help sell tickets. But I also think if it gets like it's just an average review score, will the things that are bigger MCU components ultimately then move a few more people to it, or has the power of the MCU actually worn off at this point? Because they've had too much content and a lot of it hasn't been as good as people say they were in the Infinity Saga. People forget the Infinity Saga had some misses too.
That's true.
Iron Man 2 is a movie. Thor: The Dark World is a movie.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, exactly. You go back to those ones. Yeah. You go back
to okay. I mean, they're not. Incredible Hulk's not as bad. Honestly, even Iron Man 3 was not well received when it came out. We all look back at that movie like, oh, that's great. Honestly, it's grown on me over time. When the movie first came out, especially comic fans turned their back on it.
Dude,
it made a ton of money.
I like me some Shane Black, man. I like me some Shane Black.
Yeah,
I like his dialogue and the fact that he was like, you know what, I'm gonna like have Tony not be in the suit as much, and we're gonna have this interaction with this kid. And I thought their chemistry was great. And I'm like, you just watch that movie as a Shane Black Christmas movie. We all know he loves his Christmas movies. If you think of Lethal Weapon, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, those types of movies. And if you haven't seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, do yourself a favor. Oh my God, I love that movie so much. Robert Downey also, and Val Kilmer. That's probably one of my favorite Shane Black movies. But he's just he's really good with dialogue, and that's what I always talk about when I defend Iron Man 3. I'm like, I like it because it's different from the other MCU movies because there's just the dialogue. It's the Shane Black dialogue that I really enjoy about that movie. But you're right, there has not been fully, and even like when it comes to a lot of things that are happening, I think again the pandemic really just shook up a lot of things, and
it shook up their plans, but it also shook up audiences.
Yeah,
like,
big time.
we consume things differently, dude. I just honestly, I hardly even feel excited for much anymore. Because there's so much though. Also,
Yeah.
I think the streaming era sucks. I think the streaming was a mistake, and the studios are feeling that, and that's why they're not agreeing to pay $800 million, even though it's only 2% of their revenue on streaming, because they're already in over their heads, and they're realizing that cutting the cord meant cutting the commercial ads, where you can't have 17 million people watching The Walking Dead anymore. You can't have that many viewers getting you those Super Bowl ratings unless you are the Super Bowl now. Only sports are getting an uptick in ad revenue. Everything else is seeing ad revenue drop off. Streaming numbers, people are canceling their services. There's too many options. There's too much media, and it's hard for anything to feel like an event anymore like it used to.
Yeah, it almost seems like the last. Oh, well, I mean, I guess you could say Barbenheimer was an event, which was
Absolutely.
It was very interesting. How, I mean, that's the thing is like it just seems like something like that is not going to be. It's going to be hard to like find that again. I think before that, the last like big event was what, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah,
I mean,
at the end of 21, I'd say.
yeah. So I mean, it just seems like now when it comes to like these big event I mean, but at the same time, audiences are craving different things. Like when it comes to, I mean, when Barbenheimer came out, you had two polar opposite movies. I mean,
Oh,
how could
they complimented each other like crazy though.
it's crazy how that is.
Yeah.
And you better believe that the studios are trying to figure out what's the next Barbenheimer. And it's like, I don't know how they can even try to.
I'm shocked Universal didn't want an Extra Swift weekend.
Extra Swift. Oh God. Well, I mean, that's one way to do it. I'm sure they've thought about like, how can we like do this again? Because people were just
Five Nights at Freddy's made $80 million though.
Dude, I mean, that's the thing. Horror is killing it right now.
Yo, Five Nights at Freddy's fandoms showed those fans showed up. That movie's not great. But yeah. I didn't say it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. The movie's it's whatever. But
I never played the game. I didn't go see it. So.
They're gonna send Foxy over here.
Oh, watch out!
Cupcake's gonna chew my face off.
But see, that's what's interesting. Is like it was funny because yesterday the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes trailer came out.
Yeah, it looks good.
It looks good, but I mean, but I when I retweeted it, I was like, I asked people like, what are your thoughts? And then I even said, I'm like,
no Matt Reeves.
Well, that's the thing. That's where I was kind of going like, it doesn't see like it looks good, but yeah, it just does seem like it's missing that the way that Matt Reeves like shot those last two movies. But I'm still gonna see it. I'm still excited for it. But then I had somebody actually go like, well, bad timing because people are not liking franchises anymore. I'm like, well, I think they're not liking certain franchises right now. I mean, I think you're thinking about franchises that have been around for the past decade, but now we got this year. It's like Barbie, Mario Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
There's like what we were just talking about, Freddy's. There's Fast X. There's a Fast Furious franchise.
I was surprised Mission Impossible did so poorly at the box office.
I think it got tore up by Barbenheimer.
Yeah, there's a couple factors. One is Barbenheimer. They should have moved up. They could have moved up a couple weeks and given themselves a 3-week runway. There was nothing in before Mission came out, but also calling it part 1 was stupid.
Yeah, and I think they realized that because apparently they might be changing that. But it seems like a little too late. Like you called it part 1,
definitely.
Yeah, I thought that title was like way too long. It's like you might as well just added the 7 in there and something else like Mission Impossible 7: Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's like that's a little too long. You could have just called it one thing. Call it, because when you watch the ending of that movie, it's not like it ends on a cliffhanger. It just kind of goes
doesn't even feel like a part 1.
No, it's like it just ends like, oh, the story is still going to continue, but it's not going to be continuing on like, oh, it's something like what is happening with the next movie and all that stuff.
Straight up, dude. You know what? In the other movie, that the only criticism I have of this movie is Spider-Verse. It feels like a part 1. It's Spider-Verse because that is the single most creative thing I've ever watched. That movie is incredibly well made, except for the fact that the story just ends. Like, it is a cliffhanger, but that story, like, just when it finally really reaches its peak, it never gives you a resolution at all. It just ends. That's my only criticism of that film. Though.
Dude, I remember watching that and just kind of going like, oh wait. I'm like, wait. I looked at my watch and I went, oh,
straight up. I was like, no way.
Like, how dare you? You guys are really gonna. And then I was like, and you kind of see where it's like going, and you're like, oh fuck, and you're like, you're really gonna do this to me? You're really gonna do this to us? And I mean, but I know But how didn't that get pushed too?
Oh, yeah,
Beyond
they were out of their minds when they thought that other one was coming out 6 months later when they
Fuck
announced that.
no.
There was no way. Strikes or no strikes, it just wasn't happening. So now it's just removed from the release schedule right now. It doesn't even have a date.
It's gonna be 2025 probably.
Probably.
Probably for
But
a
whatever.
while.
Like, listen, just make the best movie. Just
Dude, that's what I say, because especially when it comes to a movie like that, I mean,
you'll
that
yeah.
that whole Spidey sequence where all the Spider-Men are like going after him.
Yep.
Then they say it took like fucking, I don't know how long it took them. I remember like one of the animators said like it took like months just
Mhm.
to months and months just
They
to
outsourced to a 14-year-old, didn't they?
Right.
I think it's awesome they had that Lego scene in there though. That is so cool. I don't know how old that kid is now, but good for him and being able to do that.
So
Uh
great.
but yeah,
So freaking great.
that's another thing Marvel Studios and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to bring this full circle back to how this conversation started, has lost, is that quality control for like that first time viewing in a lot of instances. Not only like some of the shows like She-Hulk not have great VFX, but you look at some things like Miss Marvel or WandaVision, and they're going in, they're changing things after the fact, which I think WandaVision was noted in the Variety report. But like
Yeah.
Miss Marvel, they changed the color of the Statue of Liberty months after the episode released because they had it green in the show, but it was set after Spider-Man No Way Home and it was supposed to be copper colored. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, what are we, how are you guys missing those kind of things that used to be really well connected and executed and thoroughly thought through in the past? And those little touches, they're not the most important thing. The characters are the most important thing, and their arcs and their relationships, and then the larger universe becomes a big factor there. But those little things cumulatively add up, I think, to become
Yeah.
a factor on their own right. And I think that that's another thing they've been missing because they've just been doing too much to even be able to pay attention to that all of those things.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, when it comes to Blade and everything, I'm like, because obviously when it comes to Wesley Snipes Blade movies, yeah, I mean, I think like the first one's fantastic. It was something that was special and everything like that. And then Del Toro took over, and I thought he did a great job. And then of course David Goyer gave it a shot. And I always say that Blade Trinity was just Ryan Reynolds' audition for Deadpool. I was
Oh,
like,
dude, but yeah, absolutely. And then it became a Deadpool joke in the end.
yeah, pretty much. So I mean, that's the thing. It's like Ryan Reynolds is always trying to get into that superhero space, and I love the fact that he could just still make fun. He can make fun of, the fact of previous stuff that he's done. So that's
Yeah.
cool.
No,
But
I think that's when a lot of these actors are at their best, like whether it's Ryan Reynolds or even The Rock, like Central Intelligence, when
oh
he and even John Cena, when they kind of mock their own reputations and embrace. Channing Tatum does it well too.
yeah,
Some of these actors, like, they make fun of themselves a bit. I think that that's always a nice thing that fans appreciate and audiences get a kick out of.
yeah.
Yeah.
What else was in there? There was I mean, obviously the show stuff. I mean, what did you think about Secret Invasion?
The first 2 episodes were great.
Yeah, started off
First 2
great, right?
started off so strong, and then
Yeah,
it just got messy, man.
yeah,
It just got messy, and it really, that finale, like, it was a cool moment, if I'm being nice, to have Gaia revealed as, like, Nick Fury and have those powers, but then as soon as you actually think about what that is and what that would mean for the MCU, it's like,
yeah.
how did you guys think on this one? Are you sure?
Yeah. It's
It's
like,
just,
yeah.
it had good qualities. It had a great tone. Olivia Colman was fantastic. Samuel Jackson obviously always delivers. Amelia Clarke, I really like her. The character of Gaia, I feel like could have been more interesting if they didn't power her up that way.
Yeah, that
The
was
fact that
weird.
they killed Talos in that series, also unceremoniously, was
Yeah.
like, what? The Nick Fury and Talos relationship was the best thing it had going.
Their exchanges were the best, some of the best scenes. Good
Yeah,
dialogue,
definitely.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to like the show a lot. I ended up just coming away from it like this was the most average at best thing ever. I don't like it started great, it ended messy, and that's kind of the takeaway from it for me.
So when it comes to like the future of the MCU, what do you think? What do you think? I mean, I've always said that they should just, before they bring in the X-Men and Fantastic Four, they maybe should just reboot everything. What are your thoughts? Like when it
Man,
comes
they
to
ain't
that?
never doing a full reboot. I
You
can't.
don't think they'll ever do a full reboot? No.
After Secret Wars, I think things will look different, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to be a thing where it's like we're starting from zero.
All right.
Everybody's new. I think they're going to have some people who continue and some people who don't. I think you'll probably have another Iron Man, though. Like, I think that Disney is not going to let Iron Man sit on a shelf.
That's the thing.
There's just no way. But it is so kind of a reboot, but the same way like that Marvel Comics has ever done a reboot. Like, they're not doing a new 52 type thing like DC has done. They're not about to just reset everything, I don't think, in the MCU. I think it'll be like after a comics event, things look different because they always it's comics. They bring people back from the dead all the time, and it's still the continuation of the canon, whatever. Comics canon gets terribly confusing, but I do think that there's no way they're going to leave characters like Iron Man just on the shelf. Black Widow, like they have a Captain America, but also Steve Rogers is another character though that's hugely marketable, and Disney at the end of the day is in this for business. You know, they got to sell tickets, they got to sell toys.
That's the thing. It was like, that's why I always said, like, if you're going to bring the X-Men and Fantastic Four in finally, it's like, I was always like, start with a clean slate, because then you can have a Tony Stark, you can have a Steve Rogers, you can have everybody there. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but are they actually going to do that? I don't see them actually fully doing that. It just...
X-Men, I think, will be I don't think we're going to have carryovers from the X-Men franchise.
Yeah.
But so I don't think they're going to really start doing X-Men stuff until after Secret Wars. I don't think we'll really actually get into X-Men. I think we're going to get into mutants, and we're going to see Fox characters, and we're going to see other stuff that's already existed, and maybe even a few X-Men who haven't already existed. But I don't think we're going to have like a Professor X and the School for Gifted Youngsters and an X-Men roster and a team wearing their uniforms together. And I could be wrong, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the X-Men are going to be they're going to be carrying a lot of weight after Secret Wars, but also I think that they're going to start combining that with other, legacy characters from the MCU in new forms, like a new Iron Man. And I kind of want that, to be honest. I love the character of Iron Man, and I know Downey's not going to play him forever, and I know that story's over. Do I want to see him come back for Secret Wars? Hell yes, I do, dude. I want to see Secret Wars have shades of Avengers vs. X-Men, a comic book that could be improved upon very easily as well. I would love, dude, the thought of seeing the cast of like X-Men and X2 with the cast of the Avengers. What? Dude, sign me up. Where do I buy my ticket? Because I'll book the theater for every night of the weekend. I want to see that happen. Will they do it? Who knows? But that's my dream for Secret Wars. And then also bring in some of the Hickman storylines, have some of the universe. And also, what Earth 838 is out there? If that doesn't have consequences, there's just so many unanswered questions that it's like, well, are you even going to answer these questions before we even think you're going to reboot this in possibly 5 or 6 years, or reboot-ish this? It's a lot. There's a lot going on over there. But the good news, though, I have no doubt the number one thing that gives me confidence in that, I don't think Marvel's going to get to what it was with Endgame unless they bring everyone back. I don't think we're going to have another moment like that unless like everyone who ever played a Marvel character is back, or as close to that as possible for Secret Wars. But I remember what I was going to say. I don't think they'll get back to that just permanently, but this franchise is never going away. And they know, they clearly see that there are problems. They see that audiences are getting smaller. They see there's a 39% drop in Loki viewership from the premiere to premiere, which I'm not sure if that was completely accurate, because it was like a 3-day metric, possibly against a 5 or 7. I don't know. That was kind of written in a weird way in that report. But either way, there's no denying the event nature of these, the box office numbers. The Guardians of the Galaxy 3 not making $1 billion is pretty crazy if you think about it. If you would have told yourself that in 2019, you would have been pretty surprised that movie was going to come out, and Black Panther was going to get a sequel. Obviously, without Chadwick Boseman, that was a factor, something they couldn't control. The Marvels, though, selling 18 tickets out of 400 seats, that's surprising to me. It would have been surprising to me. At this point, it's not too surprising, but I think that they know what needs to be done. They're clearly taking the steps, and I think it's going to be Kevin Feige probably fighting battles against some executives who demanded too much content. And they're going to say, listen, dude, 3 movies, 1 or 2 shows a year. That's what's best for business. And hopefully they slow things down and up less quantity, more quality. And I think that Marvel could not get to Infinity War Endgame very easily, or possibly ever, but they could certainly be a powerhouse for a while.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, one of the things the article even said was like, Kevin Feige is now spread way too thin now.
Well,
It's like there's
yes.
so much stuff. And I'm like, all right, yeah, that's part of the problem because now he can't overlook as much things as he used to.
Yeah, if they would have taken their time with this the way they took their time with the Infinity Saga, I have no doubt that Phase 4 would have ended with Avengers Secret Invasion. And there would have been seeds for that planted throughout all of Phase 4. And it would have taken 3 or 4 years instead of 2 hours with the same amount of content we got in 10 years. So it's just the connective tissues, all those things. You couldn't film an Avengers movie to end Phase 4 because every cast member was already filming another project. Like they were all still filming projects while like you couldn't even get them together. So hopefully they slow it down and make it cohesive and make it really fun. A lot of the stuff that Marvel's doing, I still enjoy a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff they're still doing. Loki's on fire. Echo trailer was great. The Marvels has really good stuff in it, and I hope the movie itself is really good. And then 2024 is a clean slate. You start with Echo, which hopefully is as good as its trailer, and Deadpool 3. Deadpool 3 is going to be good. I have no doubt. I have reason to believe Deadpool 3 is going to be really
There's no way that movie's not going to be good.
Sean Levy has
Everything that's
really
going in
good.
it, and I can't even wait for the marketing. I mean, because it
Dude,
just seems like
Rat
Reynolds
Press
is
Tour.
marketing.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'll
The
tell
way
you
that they
now.
announced it, I mean, for fuck's sake. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm doing this job through Secret Wars, and then I'm out. No one's ever going to see me again. That's kind of so that I'll get to enjoy the DC universe in its first chapter. I'll get to see Secret Wars through the end. Hopefully, get to interview Downey at one point, and then I can just completely disappear. And nobody online can ever yell at me again, and I can just be peacefully living my life.
There you go. Rob Keys wanted to say hi to you.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you know who Rob, Mr.
Hey.
Screenman. I don't know if you guys have you guys met before?
No.
You guys
No,
haven't met?
never.
Not
Oh,
once
yeah.
ever. We were
Not
were
really.
actually trapped in London recently for about 22 hours together.
Yeah, felt like 3 weeks.
We've met
ago.
many times. We've met many times.
I did. Man, it's bringing it way back for you, Dave. But BD and I met for the first time on his very first set visit, which was Justice League. You know how that turned out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, geez.
Yeah,
What a set visit it was.
it was cool at the time.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
Mostly, it was a bit of a mess, but it was.
Rob, I like your jacket.
Thanks, buddy. I'm representing the. I figured you were going to be bashing Marvel, so I thought I'd represent the one thing that's good right now.
Dude, no, I'm not. I was just saying. I think Marvel's got a few big wins in the past week. I think they're going to have a couple more in the next week, and they are identifying the problems. And I don't think they're going anywhere. I'm fully with you. No, I was just joking. I did listen to what you were saying, and I've seen your tweets. You're on the money, and I agree. Forgive me, Dave. I didn't see what you guys were talking about earlier, but have you guys discussed the meta business layer of this all, where it keeps coming up on my podcast, and I've been talking about it since before Disney acquired Fox, but had Disney not acquired Fox, and if Sony was left to their own thing, we would not be in the same situation right now. You would have Fox producing 3 films a year, and at least 2 of them would be wins. On average, the quality of those movies would probably be higher. Given the last 6 movies they did, it'd be probably higher than what you got from Phase 4 of Marvel. I think you look at Logan and Deadpool and First Class and Days of Future Past. There's not many Marvel movies as of late that compare to that. And they were looking for a reset. I mean, the bangers have been Spider-Man and Shang-Chi.
Yeah, Shang-Chi's the standout new character.
Guardians 3 was great too, though. I mean, those are the 3.
It was also mentioned today. I think it was mentioned. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it was also mentioned today too. I think Screen Rant actually posted it that they were saying that they were pumping out so much content that they were able to take do experiments like with the Eternals and Shang-Chi, and it was like, okay, I understand that, but I'm like, but everybody really liked Shang-Chi. I mean, mixed with Eternals, but where's that Shang-Chi fucking sequel already? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Dude, that's just goes to show what I feel like is just they tried to put out too much stuff.
Yeah.
And also they announced too much stuff, which is very uncharacteristic for Marvel.
Yeah, usually DC's doing that shit.
Dude, DC Hall Age, Rob, we've been in Hall Age so many times where they flash every logo possible on that screen, and you're like, oh, we're getting this movie, we're getting that movie, and then you never get them.
You think seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit on stage was bad? 5 years in a row, I saw Green Lantern Corps, Cyborg movie, all this stuff that never happened.
Flashpoint, 5 years in a row.
Yeah. Different director and writer every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I gotta pop out of here.
Yeah, he's gotta leave right now.
Thank you so much for having me on, dude. This was so much fun, dude.
Yeah, always fun. You're always welcome back.
You became Iron Man over here.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I know, right? My head's like right on. I like that. See,
the value of that statue just went up exponentially.
Exactly. Holding a vodka bottle.
Oh,
But
man,
thank
Rob,
you,
dude.
Brandon. You guys, comicbook.com, Phase Zero podcast. Make sure you check it out. Brandon, been always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Thank you, dude. Also, can I plug one thing? The most random thing ever. I'm doing a wrestling event. If you're in the Nashville area,
Can you post some videos?
I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm part of a wrestling event. I'm hosting a wrestling event, but who knows? I might get involved on November 19th in the Nashville area. So if you're here, look up FXE Wrestling or look at my socials and come on out. I'll buy your ticket. I don't care. Just come hang out.
There you go. Anybody in the Nashville area?
Yeah, if you're happy to be in, if you have the tremendous, I won't insult Nashville. I live here, and it's cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you, Dave. Good to see you, Rob.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah.
We'll catch up later. Bye.
Yeah. See ya. All right. Wanted to bring you in.
Thank God that guy's gone, right?
I know, right? Comicbook.com. That guy. Get out of here.
No,
but we also we got Mr. Chainsaw Reacts, and then of course we got Phil showing up right now for the
I know that
panel.
guy.
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah, we know that guy.
I know that guy, yeah.
I was hoping Brandon could stay on for a little bit longer, but I know he had like things to do. He's like, I could stay on for a little bit, so he had to pop out. But I wanted to like make sure that Rob got a chance. I was like, hey, 2 websites. Hey, look at this. Watch out. But I always like to do that. But thank you guys for joining. How we doing tonight, huh?
Tired.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Is it Friday? Yeah, I can agree with you on there. It's been an exhausting Friday, yeah.
It is Friday. Talking to Brandon, I wanted to get his input, of course, on all the craziness that's happening over there at Marvel Studios, and that article coming out, it's like, it was kind of interesting. I mean, like Rob, obviously, with Screen Rat, you guys had to handle a lot of that info that came out.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting beats all in one. Report, you know what I mean? We could literally do a list of 12 things they talked about. But
dude, I'm gonna be doing 4 or 5 shorts just from my video of doing that. It was
of course,
But
you know what though? I will say a lot of it's not surprising. I mean, we saw look at the VFX part of it. So we know they unionize. That's been a problem forever behind the scenes. We know the Disney Plus of it all. For the shareholders, when they over-announced and went heavy in streaming without having a plan for how to use these characters, that's the real thing they're missing right now. When you saw mid-phase 1 into phase 2, when you met a character, you knew what was happening next. They would have a sequel and then an Avengers appearance. Now, when you see Moon Knight or Kate Bishop or Black Knight teased in Eternals, are we ever going to see them again? And when and why? It's just this scattershot approach with no follow-ups for any individual character. It means no character gets an arc. And we go from introduction to event, and that means that's not long-term storytelling anymore. How do you get attached to something like that? How do you keep up with something like that when you do it with 20 different characters? It's and you just lose the quality of it all. That's the killer.
And then the fact that they're talking about possibly changing Kang to Doom or something like that. I think you tweeted something about that, Rob. You're like, well, that's cool, but at the same time, you're like. The characters are going to suffer individual stories.
That would absolutely, I would say, stop the MCU, start again if they did that.
It would cause a lot of friction.
It's too important. I think Doom, I said this on Twitter, you were referring to it.
Yeah.
Doom is like a 10, 15, 20-year character. I think you introduce him, you tell his story through Fantastic Four stories, and then you eventually get to the point where he's the ultimate villain of Battleworld or some Secret Wars 2 follow-up, and then he has his hero arc where he gets his face fixed and he's the new Iron Man, like in the comics. And then you can do so much with him. But if you just introduce him as crazy big bad villain and then he's there for the Avengers, then you've shot your shot. That's it. Doom's over. That's a waste. So he's too important for that.
And Kevin Feige would be stupid to do that after finally now getting the character to then not use him properly.
It'd be pretty foolish. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
really
Doctor Doom is one of the most biggest staple Marvel villains in their catalog at the moment, especially after Thanos and what they're going through with Kang right now. Yeah, it would be incredibly foolish to just bring him in all just to waste. God damn neighbors.
I think with the Spider-Man of it all, having like a long-term plan for the Osborns and a long-term plan for Doom, and now with the X-Men and FF coming in, long-term plans, bring them in like quote unquote youngish. I hate to talk about the age of characters and actors, but that's the truth of it. Right. You need them for 15 years. These are 4 or 5 phases of movies, not do it all now. You know what I mean? So they have to plan it, which is a whole other conversation. I think everyone talks about Secret Wars being a reset and this and that, but I think the end of that is like you have your new version of the original Avengers, right? I think you have a new Tony Stark at some point, because think of it in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? Well, I'm glad he's saying that, because if you have your top tier X-Men and in the future you have some Civil War 3 or AVX or anything involving X-Men and Avengers, you can't have your 4th string of Avengers with your top tier X-Men and Fantastic Four. You need Rogers and you need Stark along with the larger Avengers team. You can't start with all those guys gone. They're not historical figures. They are there with the X-Men at some point. They have to be. So long term, 10 years from now, that should be the play, right? You have Doom, Fantastic Four, you have the main X-Men, you have a big Avengers roster. Maybe it's 2 Avengers rosters like the Hickman comics or something. So that reset is going to be pretty essential.
No, for sure. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it almost seems like with everything that's happening right now, I always say like, oh, Feige's just looking. The end of the road is that Secret Wars. I got to get to that Secret Wars. But I mean, how are we feeling about the Marvels that are going to be coming out? I mean, that's where we're, obviously there's going to be some things in there that, we won't say things that are like out there and heard, but let's face it, it's going to shock people within the people who are in the know. I don't think it's going to, when it comes to general audience, I don't know if they're actually going to care about certain things. Maybe. I don't know.
Pretty tough to say. I mean, I know I saw one of Brennan's clips from, I think it might have been the Phase Zero show, where they were talking about one of the clips from the Marvels, and they emphasized the fact that in the marketing of that specific clip or that trailer, that there's something that says you don't know what's coming next, and then for a split second, it like stops on the X for that instance, and a lot of speculation is that maybe some or one member of the X-Men might or might not show up.
But okay, so then you have to answer a lot of questions. Yeah. Is it a multiverse X-Men member? Is it an X-Men that we've never heard of that's just in the MCU now, that there's no explanation, just boom, X-Men character? Like, that's, to me, that's ridiculous. I think the X is being emphasized because Miss Marvel has been confirmed, Kamala's been confirmed as the first mutant in the MCU. Right. I think that's the emphasis, is that she's going to maybe reveal that she's a mutant. Maybe they're actually going to say it. Maybe that's the emphasis, like, the X. We know what that means. So,
absolutely, yeah.
Oh, but if it's an X-Men character, I'm like, no, don't do this. No, we don't need this guy. There's already too much going on.
Well, I mean, we'll see, I guess, when it fully comes out and everything's all revealed and everything like that. But when it comes to this article that did come out, I mean, the Blade movie has been one of those things where it's like, again, you just take that line. I mean, that's why I used that line in like the video I did. It was like, it's like some of you motherfuckers are ice skating uphill. It's like, it just seems like, how are you not? I mean, you have a 2-time Academy Award winning actor playing your lead role. How have you not had this movie already out there? And Mahershala Ali must be like, why the fuck did I sign up for this? Because it's like, now that was 2019 that he got announced. 4 years ago, 4 freaking years ago. And who knows when the hell we're actually going to see this movie.
Funny enough, that movie was actually supposed to come out today.
That's what Brent
at one point it was.
Yeah. So it was Dune Part 2.
Oh man, I was talking with a coworker about that. I was like, I hope you have a great weekend. He was like, yeah, you too. And I was like, yeah, we'd probably have a better weekend if we could watch Dune Part 2. And he was like, yeah.
Well, yeah, like Rob, what are you thinking about when it comes to the MCU Blade? I mean,
oh boy, I think it's hilarious that the end result of what they came up with is like, we're gonna kind of start fresh with $100 million budget and get in a writer who wrote an R-rated superhero epic in Logan, right? Michael Green wrote that, and it's like, well, no shit, guys. This is what, going back to the DCEU era of announcing every spinoff possible, like films like Deathstroke, all you have to do is give them $60 million and let it be R-rated, and let the filmmaker do whatever they want and shoot it raw. Forget the VFX, fix it in post mentality. Just all you have to do is Blade is, first of all, and it's a tough thing to ask for, but if it's not better than Blade 1 with Wesley Snipes, you have to cancel it. You cannot come out with a film that's not as good as that. And in order to beat that, and to be the best action movie the MCU has delivered, and it has to do that, it has to have better action than the Winter Soldier, right? Because Marvel's not the greatest at hand-to-hand practical combat sequences.
No.
You need a great script and bring in a visual choreo master. You guys are going to say Zack Snyder mentality. Everyone will say that. Yes, that's kind of it. Or 87 North or 8711 Productions. Get Chad or David's team to one of those guys to do it.
Just thinking that same thing. Chad Stileski would be ideal
100%,
for something like that.
And it has to be rated R. And you can do that with a $100 million budget.
Yes.
But
you do that with less. Maybe.
Totally, you can do it for less, but Marvel inflates everything because the way they handle just productions, and there's going to be 75 producers on it, I'm sure. But it's just exec producer of the movie, right? And it's but it's the counter. Like, think of the Marvels you're just talking about. That cost $250 million at this point.
Jesus Christ.
That's the shortest Marvel production, and from the marketing, which is not getting positive feedback, and from the word of mouth online, and I'll give a little plug for Screaming here. We work with Diesel Labs. It's a company that does analytics on all social media, including the comments on videos like this and TikTok, and they measure engagement basically online. And the Marvels, which should be the big movie of the month, is getting less tracking than the new Hunger Games film. Which is shocking to me. That's anticipated. Wild. According to data, like the Hunger Games has more hype and positivity and reception than the Marvels, which is an epic fail.
Wild.
So I follow up to $1 billion movie, right? So that's
what we were talking about too. Like when I was talking about with Brandon, it was like we have a billion follow up to $1 billion movie coming out this month, and then next month, same thing. It's like we got an Aquaman, sequel coming out too, and it's like it just seems like wow. What? Remember when we used to be hyped for this shit? What's happened? Like what's going on?
And you know what? Everyone says superhero fatigue, but it's not that. It's bad movie fatigue. Like if you're not like, there's too many great products now, and this is more towards streaming right now, given the climate we're in with strikes and delays and such. But up until Loki on Disney Plus, I think, and I've said this to you before on multiple shows, Dave. I think Disney Plus has really let us down on Star Wars and Marvel content in the first couple of years. Of course, with Andor being one of the best things Disney Plus has ever done, it's changing. And Loki, to me, is the best Marvel production on Disney Plus so far.
Oh, yeah.
But up until then, these shows, and I always classify them as 6 out of 10 shows, 7 out of 10 shows. And these are like the big budget Disney Plus releases. These are their flagship releases. Then you compare to the top 3 or 4 shows on Netflix, HBO, or any streaming service, and it doesn't even hold a T. There's no prestige content on Disney Plus until Andor, and you can make an argument Loki's getting there too. But that's not superhero fatigue. If you had amazing shows, it wouldn't be an issue. The problem is a lot of it's just forgettable or not quality enough. If it's not the best show on TV, I don't care. It has to be in that echelon to warrant a $250 million film budget. You know what I mean? So
$250 million, and you look at those VFX, and you go, "Wow, oh my god!"
It seems like a small film from the marketing. It's like you have these few set pieces on Earth and this weird like alien ships or whatever, and then the villain I don't really know anything about. It's not. I don't know what the story is about.
It seems like a Disney Plus show. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it looks like it's like was this meant for, I mean, a lot of people have even said that, like, just put it on Disney Plus, but it's like you look at some of the clips, you look at the trailer, and you go, this does not feel like a cinematic movie.
The problem with the Disney Plus of it all is like the ratings are.
Exactly.
Because you look at the Loki season 2 premiere, which got amazing praise. It was like 30% drop from season 1.
Yeah,
which is a shocker. And then you look at the lead up to on the Marvel side, the lead up to the Marvels, it was Secret Invasion, which was terrible, and everybody hated it, and nobody watched it. So how can Disney Plus is not the answer for anything.
The studios are definitely doing a wake up call when it comes to streaming, and it's like, oh yeah, we could just put everything right here, and it's not. Well, I mean, smart for them to be like, hey, let's make Armored Wars a feature film. Yeah. Because it's like, because if they were to make that a series, it probably would get the Secret Invasion. Maybe if you like condensed it to a 2-hour and 15-minute movie or something like that, maybe they could have done something, even though that ending was pretty damn horrible. But maybe they could have just like, really done something with it if it was just that, same with like Obi-Wan. I mean, that they have that Obi-Wan cut that somebody cut it down, and it's like, you cut down all the filler to extend it to like this series. And I think like that's kind of been a little bit of a wake-up call. Like, okay, we can't just like take these stories and try to turning it into a 7-8 episode, story, because then we're going to have all this filler and people are just going to talk about one certain episode. This episode was amazing. And then all of a sudden it's like all the other stuff. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the whole thing about Disney, I think, rushed to get a streaming service out there.
Yes.
When I don't think they were ready. And I think you're right. The whole idea of taking a story and stretching it to 6 episodes, when their mentality for years was movie.
Yeah,
it's a movie. We're setting up movies. We're not doing TV. That's being handled by ABC, Netflix. It's going other places. We're not touching that. And the fact is, too, is revealed that they don't have showrunners for a lot of their shows up to now. They're realizing, oh crap, we need a showrunner. I did not know that they were just kind of just winging it. Like, you're just going to run it. Okay, like they didn't know, like, because they didn't make TV. So, and I feel like it's because Disney Plus came on, then Bob Paycheck showed up. And he's like, okay, you're gonna push out shows. And Marvel's like, we don't have the resources. I don't care. I don't care who you get. Go get someone to run the show. Yeah, I think that's the issue.
Yeah,
they are being forced because Disney Plus needs content. Not Marvel's problem. You forced a streaming service out, and you weren't prepared for it.
Name
because it came out with
time.
like what? The Mandalorian. That's all it started with.
Yeah,
and then they're like, oh, we gotta get our flagship stuff, like you're saying, and it,
Name one time Bob Iger said something negative about Marvel Studios prior to this year. You can't.
No.
Right? Because he was always superbly, profoundly proud of what Marvel Studios had done up until this point. And now, I don't remember, it might have been after Ant-Man Quantumania, it might have been a little bit after that or before that, but he was like, yeah, Marvel Studios doing TV stuff has diluted and lost the brand a little bit. And now,
he also should make a point to say we also got to blame the guy who replaced me that I had to take over, because he was also, as their boss, forcing them to rush out productions.
Very true.
So
very true.
It's a double-edged sword situation, because you don't want to hurt the people that are making you the product.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's all like the pandemic really just, streaming was always going to be the future. But I think like the pandemic just yanked it 5 years from now, just like right into the present. And so then Netflix, everybody was just like, hey, we got to fill out the library, new stuff, go, throw money. And then all of a sudden the cash flow was like, oh shit, the cash flow is not as great as it once was. And we're just pumping out a bunch of, shit like as quickly as possible. And then one of the things in the article too, which we've heard about numerous times, is the VFX houses being pressed to like get things out as quickly, working these ridiculous hours. And then when they put something out, all of a sudden it is it looks like shit. It can look like shit. It's like But again, we got Loki, at least. That's what's so crazy about this. Rob, explain it to me. Like, how is that Loki so good? And then everything else is like,
I'll tell you why. Because part of it is that it's the only season 2 of any of these shows for Marvel. And they kept all the team leads, all the crew leads went from Atlanta to London for this productions. And there's this funny story where Tom Hiddleston, who's also a producer on this, I believe, he did like this workshop for everyone in the crew in the first time around. Like, because he knows everything about the character and he had this vision for everything. And he kind of got everyone in on what this character should be and could be. And then for season 2, they didn't have to do that because all the people were back. They just know that. And plus, if you look at the design of the show, it's a lot of, for lack of a better, it's more simple by design. The story is crazy with doing time travel, multiverse stuff, but the production of it it's very practical sets. It's beautiful production design. Yes. It's your ensemble and they are working. It's the closest thing to Severance, which Apple does. It's like you have your crew and they bounce between the in and out of the world, and it's like, but they're just these are your players, and they're on stage and they're doing their thing, and they have talent and writing and a crew that already knows it, and they're allowed to do their thing. And when I screened the first 4 episodes, which is like a month and a half ago now, I was like, wow, Marvel needs Loki more than Loki needs Marvel, because this thing they can just do their own thing and keep telling these great stories. You know what I mean? But now if you saw episode 5, they're definitely turning. I mean, Loki's gonna be Kingmaker type player going forward, so it's kind of exciting.
I just wonder, like obviously, like everybody's loving Loki, and when we're talking about and I see people like, who's going to lead Secret Wars? Everybody's like, can Loki do it? It's just kind of crazy how I love the character development of Loki, and Tom Hiddleston, of course, is just fantastic. I mean, no one can do a hair whip like him. I mean, anytime that he does that, my God, that guy just does a hair whip like no other without water. I mean, usually like you whip your hair up like that when you're in water, when you're coming out of the water, but that dude just knows how to do a hair whip. But anyways, no, I'm just saying, like, it's just, he was always like a likable villain previously, and now all of a sudden he's like the good guy, and you're rooting for him, and then you're just kind of going like, it's just crazy how that character has been developed throughout the past decade, and they've done such a great job with him. With this series is just, I haven't watched the latest episode. I'm like dying to, of course. But
okay.
You should. I haven't watched the latest one.
That's I know. You gotta watch it. The way that ends, it changes kind of,
I'm sure.
Everything.
Yes, I know. Yeah. See? But it just kind of makes you wonder, like, how much are they going to stretch his character, and how much is he going to be in like the future stuff? I mean, because obviously with the multiverse, everything, I mean, this is kind of like, they're like in the center of that kind of in a way. So
I think
Dave, I got a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Dave if I have just a real quick question. It kind of ties into the 5th episode, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, but have you ever seen the movie Escape from Alcatraz?
Yes, I have.
Okay. There is something that happens in this episode that you will appreciate. I'll just say
okay, good. I love that movie. Escape from Alcatraz. You're talking about the Clint Eastwood movie, right?
Yes.
Clint Eastwood and Fred Ward. Yeah.
Yes.
Great movie. Love that movie. Okay. All right. So I don't know. I'm thinking mannequin head or fake head. Okay. Anyway, so I'm not going to ask questions. Anyways, what were you going to say, Rob?
Oh yeah. To your point about like what they can do with Loki long term, I think characters like Loki and Thor or Odin's son, I think they keep them around forever. I think Thor, you can age up and he just becomes the king in the future. And I think Loki, you could do a similar type thing as well and keep them. You know what I mean? You can continue the Thor franchise with Odin taking, Thor becoming Odin, essentially, some version of that in the future. The same way I thought Tony Stark was going to stick around. I thought he was going to be a mentor to Ironheart. I thought he was going to do something with the Doctor Strange stuff. You know what I mean? But it's still possible at one point,
Yeah. Do you actually think, like, when they were talking about bringing, Downey and Scarlett Johansson back, I mean, obviously people suspected that they would come back for Secret Wars, but I mean, it seems like that article was like making it sound like they wanted to bring him back fully to like sign like a fucking 8-picture deal or something like that.
No, that's never going to happen. But they are going to be back for Secret Wars. Every version of everyone from every movie ever is going to be back, and then 100%. it's going to wipe this clean. It's going to restart the slate. They're going to pick and choose who they want. It'll be a new Wolverine, but guess what? You keep Hugh as Old Man Logan. You know what I mean? They'll be your main Hawkeye, but you still have Old Man Clint. You can pick and choose. That's exactly what the comics did. There's like multiple Wolverines in the comics for a reason. You have old and modern plus X-23. So you can do all of that. You have to choose the best of everything and start fresh. So that's the end game. There will be an Iron Man. There will be a Cap. There will be a Thor. There will be X-Men. There will be this. And it'll be the prime variant of everything going forward. And if you have old actors, they can still be there as a different version of that character. So
like that.
That's how you bring back. That's how that gives you everything you need to restart and more. Right. So
okay.
I have a question for Rob actually regarding that. How do you feel they would handle Spider-Man going forward? Do you think Tom Holland will stick around for another 3 films, or do you think by film 5 or even the 6th potential would he pass the torch to Miles Morales?
That's a good question. It is the Tom Holland of it all more than anything else, right? I appreciate he wants his time off. I appreciate he's trying to like stretch his talent muscles. You know what I mean? With his projects he's choosing. He's not choosing projects for fame or money right now. He's picking and he pieces out in social media. I love that about him. But to answer your question, I do think he sticks around long term. I think he mentors a version of Miles Morales. I think he is the Tony Stark in 10 years. Whatever it is, Parker Industries. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think that if they did everything right and Feige got his way, every one of these character arcs is like the Harry Potter thing, where it's like 8 movies, but more, because these aren't just kids going through school. This is kids becoming adults, becoming old people in the MCU. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the blueprint, anyways, what they want to happen. Of course.
Now the big factor in all that is like whether or not Marvel and Sony can play nice for that long.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah,
after No Way Home, I think it's possible.
I mean, certainly hope
not so. Not every movie Spider-Man is going to make almost $2 billion, but that just goes to show that them working together, it made them a lot of money. So
yeah,
and people want to see what happens with this version of Peter, who's now on his own. He's got a classic suit. He's back to being traditional Spider-Man.
Talk about the longest origin story, but hey,
but people are excited because it's something new that they haven't seen from his version yet. So give us that. And of course, in the Spider-Man 2 game, we have that suit. We can actually see what it looks like. True. So I think people would be definitely through it. And I think Sony would be stupid to pull it out, to stop, any in future involvement, because that's just going to continue to keep going. And plus, once we get to say King Dynasty Secret Wars, they're going to bring those Spider-Man back. They're going to do all that craziness again. So yeah, you keep that connected.
Yeah, Sony needs it because that's not a studio that's very profitable on its own. Sony Pictures and Sony as a company in general. But both sides are hurting themselves. Like Sony is really weird to me. It's very wild that they're making all these spin-off solo films and
yeah.
Well, you're not looking forward to Madam Web? What are you talking about?
Kraven the Hunter?
That one. I'm excited to see Kraven, but I understand it's not going to be critically acclaimed by any chance. And I had fun with Venom, and Morbius is ridiculous. But
that's the thing is the Venom films have been
they're fun.
They are. Yeah. Morbius, but, Morbius was it's just when I watch it, I just see how chopped up it was, and it's hard to get past that. It had potential to be something pretty interesting, but you could see how they chopped up that thing.
It's true, and both studios got to get out of their own way. So Sony with stuff like that, and also we have 3 Peter Parkers right now who everybody loves.
Yep.
You could do each one of them have a movie every 3-4 years, and you essentially have a Spider-Man flagship every summer. Whether it's Toby, Andrew, or Tom, I'm in. And they're not doing the answer for both studios right now is we have nothing except maybe Spider-Man 4, Tom Holland. It is happening, but you know what I mean? It's that's weird from both studios. And then on the Marvel side of it all, it is annoying as hell to see them hijacking their own film. So Spider-Man 3, which ended up becoming an event film and multiverse of it all, making tons of money, as you say, but that was not supposed to be that. That was supposed to be a Spider-Man focused film with someone like Kraven in it. We still haven't gotten the Spider-Man film. And of course, like you said, they tease it up for the next time, but Marvel got in the way of the plans for that. And kind of I like No Way Home, but I think it could have been a great Spider-Man film. And it ended up being a fun event film, but not exactly the best film. And certainly one with a lot of plot holes I don't like. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot of it had potential, like especially with the original pitches and everything like that. If you look up that, it's it had potential to be another Raimi Spider-Man 2, I guess you could say. It could have been something to definitely.
That, which they haven't done yet. So
no, they have not. They have not reached. I mean, let's face it. When it comes to live action, Spider-Man 2 is just it's that bar. It's that Dark Knight bar that that Batman has to achieve. I guess you could say. I mean, obviously, you can make the argument that Spider-Verse movies are have exceeded that or whatever. But that's animation. They have more. There's when it comes to Spidey action, you could do so much more, and that's why obviously the stories are always very well written for both of those movies, and can't wait for Beyond. But when it comes to live action, man, I mean, I tell you, Spider-Man 2, you watch that. I remember revisiting that, not too long ago, and just being yeah. I mean, Raimi was just look what he did right here. I mean, it was just and then of course Spider-Man 3 comes out, and you're fuck.
Which is again Sony meddling.
Yes.
He didn't want Venom in there. He wanted Vulture. He had a whole different plan. But even despite that, and I hated that movie when it came out, you go back and revisit it. There are a lot of shots or sequences that still have that Raimi magic, where it is a lot of practical shots, really great acting, even though it's goofy dialogue at times. It's they are still missing that in the MCU. So even the Amazing Spidey films have some amazing sequences that we haven't seen in the MCU. So.
Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2 had, I mean, you watch some of that, I mean, especially the Gwen sequence, and literally the spider web reaches out to her. I mean, in slow motion, that whole sequence, reflection in the eyes, him diving down to try to save her, and then when he shoots the web, I mean, that scene where you actually see the web do this,
turns into a hand,
hand reaching out. I'm I mean, yeah, the story's a little, all over the place, and they were, they cut things out of there too that we know of now. Obviously,
Sony got in their own way again,
Sony doing the Sony thing that they
Sinister
do.
Six, Mary Jane gone. What's happening? Oh,
God,
they ruined it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. But when it comes to Spidey sequences, I would say even Amazing Spider-Man 2 probably has some of the best. I mean, especially with the electrode, with all the power,
Cool
like
sequence.
power things, and he's like going through and it's slow. It does a Zack Snyder like fast and slow kind of thing. It's like, come on.
Even the Peter Parker stuff. Remember that lobby?
Yes!
You see it all the time, the clips of it on social media. But like when he's in the lobby helping Gwen get past the security guard, and he's like tripping the guy, shooting the web, and doing this thing. It's a beautiful, like practical shot, and it's like, bring that magic back, you know? Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm not dogging on Spider-Man. Spider-Man's pretty high quality compared to most of the things we're talking about. So
true.
I mean,
all right, we got Paul joining in right now.
Hey guys.
Hey, Paul.
How's it going, guys?
We're just talking some Spider-Man and some MCU craziness, you know, obviously. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, I've been listening to the video kind of on and off and everything. I heard some of the BD interview, and I heard a lot of what you guys were talking about. A lot of it I agree with. A lot of it's just kind of it's a whole mix of different things between Marvel trying to maintain control to some degree, overflooding of the market, all these other different types of things. I want to say though, I feel as far as Spider-Man goes, not counting the Sony side projects. Not the Spider-Verse stuff, but mostly the Venom and the Kraven and whatever else.
Madam Web.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but but I do want to say, and I do agree. As much as I don't care for the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I think there is cinematic quality there, as opposed to some of the later MCU movies that have been coming out. That being said, I remember when the ending of Amazing Spider-Man 2 happened, and like I didn't even go to see the movie. I think I pirated it when it first came out. Like I just was not in the mood to see it. But that regardless, I was just not on board with that version. But the point being is that at the time, I remember that the video games were really bad. The movie wasn't really doing it for me. The comics had gotten really bad to a degree. Like Spider-Man for me was kind of at like a low point. And like I'm one of those that enjoys the Holland movies quite a bit, as much as the MCU is kind of a smorgasbord mess to a degree, like where they, like where No Way Home was supposed to be one movie and then became another movie, right? But at the same time, I'm at this point now where I've had 2 Spider-Verse movies, I've had 3 Tom Holland films, and we've now had 2 Spider-Man video games. Oh, well, not counting the Miles Morales one, which have all been adequate, like, 8 out of 10s or 9 out of 10s, depending on like, which game we're talking about. And I gotta say, like, as a Spider-Man fan, I feel I'm in a better place than I was, say like 2014-ish,
And even to like add to that real quick, Hickman bringing back Ultimate Spider-Man and doing something different with it, having Peter be older when he becomes Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The comics.
Kiss.
Yep, and the comics themselves have jumped back. 616, I don't know about that version of Peter Parker, but all the other versions of Miles and Peter in some form are trying to do something different at least. So yeah, so even on that level, like I feel like Spider-Man has bounced back quite a bit. But as to the nature of the MCU and everything else, I mean, you guys have kind of covered a lot of it already. I don't want to say too much and like be kind of like repetitive here, but yeah, I would say that it's come down to the fact that instead of focusing, I mean, it was either Chainsaw or Rob had said it earlier, but the main focus was that when it came to the TV stuff, especially, the idea of the quality kind of went out the window for some reason, which I was kind of surprised by, because my take on it being how Marvel was at the time, say at the end of Endgame, was like, okay, we've been doing movies for 10 years. And we always have a limited window to tell this story or tell this character or whatever the case is. But anyone will tell you when you have a long form, storytelling with television, it gives you so much more groundwork to cover so much more about the character or their supporting cast, which is always a good deal with the superheroes and stuff. And the first 3 shows, WandaVision, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki, was a great start.
Yeah.
And even though one may have been a little bit different in quality to the other one, each one was a different thing, and it was a different type of quality. And so at that point, I felt people were kind of on board with the Disney Plus stuff. And then it was more about arguing about, well, what does this show do for you? What does this show do for you? I think most people agreed that Loki was the best one, but it was like the quality was still kind of there. and then it just like steamrolled, and we like lost the narrative. And then by the time we get the Secret Invasion, it's it's kind of almost completely lost. But then we get Loki season 2 and that Echo trailer, and I'm kind of back on board. So it's like, but still, right now we're in this phase where it's the scales have tipped, because I think you and Brendan were talking earlier, where like, yeah, the Infinity Saga, not all of them were winners, but it was more of like a 70-30. You had like 70% of it pretty good or really great, and then 30% which was kind of bad, mediocre, or shitty. And then like, but now it's kind of like it's like half and half, and almost kind of like where there's more bad stuff than there is good stuff. And so now everyone's gotten tired, and now the fatigue is setting in, because like that's how it's going.
It's that pandemic, man. That also didn't help.
I was about to say, because those first 3 shows were heavily like had issues because
are they? You froze.
I froze. Sorry.
It's all right.
Internet goes down. But yeah, so like those shows were in production when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So they were like, they were like in a panic, but they had plenty of time to work on the pre-production or writing when they were shut down if they wanted to make changes. So, I think those first couple shows did better because they had more time, but then the other shows,
Yeah.
So it's just I'll say this. I enjoyed Werewolf by Night, even though that was a special presentation. I think that was a special show. I think that was something interesting. But a lot of the other shows, well, I'm gonna leave Secret Invasion kind of out of it, because that just kind of like toppled. But Secret Invasion is actually a good example regardless, because it signifies the problem with a lot of the other shows, which is it starts strong, and then for some reason it ends very, very weak. What was it? Because the Marvels, Miss Marvel was a huge example of that. The first 3 episodes, granted, it's goofy and it's kind of dumb, but that's kind of
really enjoyed it.
That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Camilla. That's what her whole life is. She's just a kid trying to make her way. It's like, okay, I got this. I get what they're going for here. And then the villains show up, and then it's just disaster after that point. And I've had
the villain problem that's always been plaguing the MCU, I would say.
Yeah. Well, see, that was the thing too, is like, again, I am not a hardcore Miss Marvel fanatic, or I haven't read a lot of her comics, but she doesn't even necessarily have a villain. Her whole point is that she deals with the other. Yeah, she deals with the other heroes, and then I think at some point, I think Civil War 2 in the comics, she deals with like having to deal with Carol Danvers, and like how she reflects on her hero and who she likes. Or I don't know, but that's at least more interesting than random villain. I don't have any idea who she is, and I have a running joke with a friend of mine, because we've watched a lot of the Marvel stuff together, where like I think the villain grabs someone at one point and basically is like, no, we need to take Camilla now, basically, like during that wedding sequence. So I have a joke with a friend of mine where like the villain will grab someone and say, no time, meaning like there's no budget, there's no time to do any of this, and we're just gonna fast forward to whatever. And but honestly though, that kind of sums up a lot of like these other things that kind of follow in tandem with the other shows, where it just feels like we're just kind of fast forwarding to the thing or the CGI battle that we had to pre-viz before this, and so
see, that's the bad part when it comes to like, oh, we got to have a CGI battle. I mean, Jesus Christ, that Secret Invasion. Yeah. And when I remember I saw the clip of what's her name, flexing her Drax arm. I was like, I remember seeing that, like, and like people were posting that like crazy before I actually watched the episode. I'm like, that can't be real. I'm like, there's no way that can be real. And it was so real. And I was like, oh my God, they really just did. Man, it was just, and especially like you said, Rob, is like that started off strong, but then it just for some reason it was just like it needed to be a movie. They needed to condense that into a movie for sure, and have a different ending. That's for sure.
Well, also, that's another problem is like they gotta have a clearer vision on what the story is. It was very clear in the Infinity Saga what we're doing, right? What we're building towards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right now we're in the mess of the multiverse, and no one really loves the multiverse. It's a byproduct of how they kind of dealt with the Thanos threat, of course, messing with time, and there are consequences, and they have to come due, of course. But like this multiverse story is not really benefited that much. And you look at Doctor Strange, which is the movie about that, and it was such a limited view of it, and it didn't really take advantage. And
it was limited, but I loved it. I just love the Raimi-isms. That's
I like the Raimi of it all. But to me, we met a Reed Richards in that movie, and to me, it's one of the most forgettable MCU films.
It really was.
That's shocking to me.
The thing with that, or the thing with, because I defend Multiverse of Madness, but for me, the crux of that movie, I'm talking just in terms of the movie, not necessarily the MCU structure, but for that movie, it's more about Doctor Strange and his relationship with other people and having to give someone else the knife. That's really what the whole point of the movie is. Yes, the problem is that it's marketed as the Multiverse of Madness, and I've talked with Dave and Phil about this countless times on other streams. Like, it just should have been given a different title, because that title alone hurts the movie in the long run, when really it's just about Doctor Strange going on a journey, helping out a kid, and learning to trust others rather than just himself, because he's so smart and so gifted in the arts and everything. But the problem, I think, because back to your point about, Kang and about the overall viewpoint, is that for us comic book guys, like, Thanos was easy to figure out. Once we saw the end of Avengers 1, we knew, Infinity Gauntlet. That's where we're getting to. It won't be exactly Infinity Gauntlet, probably, but that's the end. That's the end game, so to speak. We didn't know it was going to be called End Game, but that was our general idea. Kang doesn't have that. Kang has the Council of Kangs. Kang is a villain that shows up in Avengers, and he shows up in Fantastic Four. Kang is a threat, and he's a I would say a B villain that we're now making into an A villain with the movies, and we're focusing how much more damage he can truly do. And it is a fascinating concept, but we really don't know, like, what Kang's end goal is going to be, or what he really wants, what are his actual wants and desires. Thanos, even to a degree, and I think we can all agree on this, Thanos was teased a lot, but all of his background was done within Infinity War, pretty much. And even then, we assumed from the comic books it would be him trying to, convince Death about things, but in reality, this version of Thanos is about population control, or for the sake of, like, saving the universe rather than, like, doing it to appease some sort of deity. And but yeah, I mean, that's why I think so many rumors and so many things are happening with the Doom talks, because Doom, while he doesn't necessarily have, like, an Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Doom is almost like, he's just so well known. He's so much more well known as a villain. You could see him becoming the main villain of Secret Wars or Battle World or whatever. Not only because that's what is actually in the comic, the original Secret Wars, it makes more sense for him to be there than, say, maybe Kang. But again, Kang Dynasty is supposed to be right before that. So I see it being more realistic that if something is to go sideways with Jonathan Majors, he's going to be replaced by a Kang variant. They still do Kang Dynasty, and then they go right to Doom. But they make it so that Doom is this, otherworldly thing, and maybe we find out more about him through the Fantastic Four films, maybe before then, or maybe a little bit after, depending on how they want to handle that.
I think you touched on my main point there about the vision of it all. Your explanation is all about the multiverse and Kangs, but you didn't once mention Skrulls. That's my point is, we have just introduced a million shape-shifting invaders to our Earth. Why are we doing that now? It's
exactly.
Skrulls and Kree are not a thing right now. So
ask the Eternals. Who gives a shit about the giant? No one cares. It's in the middle of the fucking ocean, and no one's talked about it.
I know, it's mind-numbing. So this is my problem with planning. We're missing the plans right now. With these characters, right?
I think you're right about the Quantum Mania, or at least what the idea about the Kang variant, because Quantum Mania, you have that scene with all the Kangs, right? But you can easily say, well, there's Kangs that we just didn't see, because there's obviously they don't show every single Kang that's there. That doesn't look like Jonathan Majors. If they were to do that,
they will. That's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah. So if they do that and have a Kang variant that isn't Jonathan Majors, if they decide to move away from Jonathan, then literally they could say, oh, this Kang that isn't really talked about, he becomes more powerful than all of them.
He's the Kang. He's the
and maybe that Kang has the ability to transform all of them to look like a version of him. So then that fixes your issue.
And then
I don't know.
Feige gets asked, he goes, "Well, wait a minute, we have 3 different Spider-Men."
Yeah, honestly,
that could be true. There could be a multiverse Kang that shows up, and that's a different person. You know,
they probably don't even need to address it though. They'll just if they chose to recast, it's just a recast. It's just
well, they would understand why they did it if because obviously the controversy that's happening with Jonathan Majors right now. So it would be probably pretty simple. But it sucks because he's a good actor. He's a really good actor. He was the best thing in Quantumania. I mean, as much as I love Paul Rudd, let's face it, all the Ant-Man stuff and everything, and but then you got a sense of like Jonathan Majors taking on this character, and I was like, oh yeah, he definitely was the best thing that came out of that thing. But it was just like, we might not see him as King again. And he's great in Loki, Jesus Christ. I mean, he was great. What was the character? Which character that he played?
Victor Timely.
Yes, there you go. And I mean, he's a fantastic actor. And it sucks that we might not see him play the character again, or even see him in movies again. Jeez, who knows?
Yeah, that whole controversy is nothing short of a big shame. Seriously,
that's it. And trial aside, I think a lot of the other issues are just how he is allegedly on set.
You hear about that stuff too.
And you got YCAA dropped at him, and you listen to what his college other people said about him there. It's like, oh, okay, so there's something else going on. Allegedly.
There's an alleged record there.
Reportedly.
Basically, again, I don't know all of the details, so if I skip over something, feel free to correct me. But basically, what they're dealing with is they're either dealing with a guy that's a major prima donna that's kind of a shitty to his co-stars or co-workers, which they could probably work with, knowing Disney and how they kind of like tread that line. That's manageable probably to them to a degree. But then you have a guy who's a woman beater, and that's probably going to be their line, obviously. Yeah, and they can't do that. So, but right now that's
allegedly.
But that's the line right now, and they got to see like where everything falls essentially, and then they're going to go from there. So
it doesn't really fit the Disney brand. You can't have someone like that on press tour, and if you can't market your lead of an Avengers film, it's game over. You have to replace. There's no question.
I mean, they fired James Gunn for less, so it really shouldn't be a no-brainer.
And didn't tell Kevin Feige; they just did it. They didn't even let the people who hired him know.
Right. And it's like, if this trial goes south, it's just going to be an even worse look for them. And they're going to, at that point, you'd have to think they'd be like, we need to just cut this tie in.
That's why they haven't made any decisions. That's why they haven't made any decisions.
Right.
Because we saw what occurred, even though you can agree or disagree with the extent of it, the whole Johnny Depp situation. He won his case, but they already axed him out years ago. But in this case, they don't want to jump the gun. Literally, James Gunn. They don't want to jump the gun.
They broke up that high school.
Yeah, that was so fucking bad.
That was such a great TikTok
so
ridiculous.
Oh man, that was something.
I believe.
What the heck did I miss?
You didn't see that video?
Jonathan Majors, or is this Johnny Depp?
Yeah,
Johnny Depp. Yeah.
There's a video out there where these two girls are fighting on a high school campus or whatever the hell, and Jonathan Majors comes in and breaks it all up. But it looks like it was staged by Vought.
It's so bad.
Yeah,
it's so bad
because the camera, the person holding the phone hardly moves, and also it looks he just steps into frame.
Yep.
And
Can we talk about because you Dave, you mentioned Vought. I think we should talk about the elephant in the room as far as the superhero genre, because honestly,
Gen V's killing it.
Well, between The Boys, Gen V, and now I haven't watched the new season yet, but Invincible, you have these independent projects that are tackling the stuff that the MCU or what the DCEU would have been at one point, that they should be tackling these things to a degree, and they're kind of not. And I'm getting more entertainment from, I'm assuming you guys are caught up in Gen V. That show,
nope.
I'm only 3 episodes in. Sadly,
all right. I won't spoil anything, but to say that the character stuff, and even turn the fact that it is a legit The Boys spinoff, they play with that, and it's well written and well crafted. This independent stuff, you can tell, they have their shit locked down, they know what they're doing,
It's probably, it's got to be a lot easier. Oh, it's a lot easier.
Oh no, it's easier for sure. Yeah.
So they could push those boundaries, and they could be like, well, this is what some people. I mean, I think like when it comes to like somebody like Zack Snyder is like the fact that he really wanted to break down the characters as much as possible, but of course he can only do it so much. I mean, obviously when we hear about his Wonder Woman pitch that he had for Wonder Woman 1858 or whatever the hell, I mean, shit, she was like, I mean, and there's more to it too. Just the fact that she was like, oh yeah, she was like helping fight these bloody wars, and she's holding a bag of heads, and she was ruthless killer, and God knows when it comes to like all this other stuff, it's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I want it, but then of course they're like, all right, but then we're gonna have a Wonder Woman spinoff. Patty Jenkins is gonna do it, so we're gonna do it like this, where it's a little more lighthearted, but still, she's still the warrior, but it's not what Zack Snyder placed as a backstory initially when we see, of course, that Wonder Woman image, and it kind of sucks that eventually maybe, it'll get to a point where they go, fuck it, everything's R-rated. Marvel, you're gonna see Iron Man just killing people, bloody.
I want to preface on two things, because on one hand, I'm very happy and excited that the Echo show is TVMA. I think that's a good move. I know.
I was surprised.
I was also shocked. But if they're going from the David Mack and that Bendis Brubaker era of Daredevil, then good. Like that's what they should be doing, honestly, because that's, I think, what you want to lean into, especially if you're dealing with like Kingpin. I want to see Netflix Kingpin. I don't want to see whatever Kingpin I saw at the end of Hawkeye, where he like rips a door off, and I'm like, Kingpin would have sent somebody. He wouldn't have done it himself. Like, even if he knew the person. Like, I don't know, that irked me for some reason. But I mean, and again, when I'm saying the boys have these things locked down or invincible, I'm not saying necessarily that they have to get to this gratuitous, like crazy violence that are in those shows. I'm just talking about the structure and the characters and the well-written, like control of their narrative, essentially. I should preface that. Don't get me wrong, like if Deadpool 3 doesn't take advantage of its R rating, I'm going to be very, very upset.
I think it will.
Yeah, like do that, like go nuts, if your project is MA or R, please use that advantage and go with it, because honestly, in my opinion, like Marvel does need to, well, more so Disney needs to embrace that going forward, because
I've been saying that for years.
Yeah,
I've been saying that. I'm like, if you're gonna own like what 31% of the fucking film industry, you gotta embrace the R rating. You gotta embrace this adult content. And somebody like Ryan Reynolds going into this, you better believe he's gonna take advantage of every little nook and cranny, because it just seems like anytime you see a Mint Mobile, commercial or whatever. The recent one that he did with Grant Gustin, or whatever the hell, I don't know, it wasn't for Mint Mobile, it was for something else. Something. But at the same time, it was fucking awesome. Like, just the fact that he kept on like making flash puns, and then he's all, "You'll always be my Barry," and then he says, "You'll always be my Hal," and he's all, "That hurts." It's like just stuff like Ryan Reynolds. It just seems like he has his finger on the pulse when it comes to a lot of things. And I can't wait for the marketing for Deadpool 3, because that's going to be, just even the way that they announced it was so perfect, and it's like, and I just really hope that like Feige and everybody, Disney, is just like, let him do his thing. He's got a whole crew, and, just let him do his thing and really embrace
what I want
you're tapping into another audience here that you guys did not have, you didn't have them before, and now you have them.
I want a marketing piece where Ryan is going to different Fox X-Men cast houses and asking if they'll be in his movie. They keep shutting the door on him or something. He goes up to Halle Berry's like, "Hey, you want to be Storm?" And she's like, just slams the door in her face. And then goes up just other people's houses. Ian McKellen, he like, "I'm too damn old." Shut the door. Like, just have
like,
to be really.
To even add on to that, like, what if he walks onto the set of the Frasier reboot and says, "Hey, do you want to come back as Beast?" And he's just like, "Dude, I'm fucking Frasier right now. What are you talking about?"
and then he starts going up to other people that are not in like the Marvel stuff, like just other Disney projects or whatever, and they start asking people like, "Hey, you want to be in Deadpool 3?" It's like, I'm not even in Marvel. It's like, "Oh, sorry." And then he's just going around asking people. He goes to Kevin Feige, "Hey, you want to be in Deadpool 3? Get back to work, okay, Ryan? Seriously." He's like, "I'm sorry."
Dude, I'm telling you, there's so much that, and it sucks that, when they were talking about, oh yeah, they'll still make that May 2nd release date. Everybody went,
No.
okay.
No.
Okay, there. Sadly, it's not going to, but hopefully, it's only going to be a couple of months. It's not going to be, pushed a year like Snow White. It's not going to be something like that. Well, that's a whole different story. But
I wonder what that's
hopefully, if they can, if things go well and they resume production, in January. And they said like 30 days more or something like that they needed to shoot.
Oh, it's gonna be more than that. They're realistically only halfway.
Okay,
Plus,
thank you, Rob.
It's more than that, guys. We focused on a lot. He came to our tips. So that's gonna be a 20. What is the date now? Still on record? Is it still 2024 something summer?
They it's not even on. Like even Brandon said, like Deadpool is not even on doesn't even have a date now, right?
Really?
I don't think it has a date.
I just got a slate this week. I'll have to look it up for you. But it's going to be summer 2025, I think.
What? What?
Really?
Sorry.
I was kind of hoping.
Should I be saying this? Wait, hang on a second.
I was kind of hoping it'd be able to make like December 2024 and take the Thunderbolt slot. But if they have a lot more to do than 30 days worth of shooting, I could see them pushing it to 2025. Definitely.
It'll be 2 months of shooting and reshoots, and it needs a year for VFX.
You're right. So
I entirely forgot about the Thunderbolts, even with the New Order stuff coming soon. I just completely.
Well, that might be where we see the big old Titan thing coming out of the planet. Apparently, finally get that answer from Eternals, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So the slate that Marvel updated last week, Disney updated, it's still listed as May of next summer, but it's not, obviously.
Right.
And Captain America, Thunderbolts are still there. It's gonna take. It could come spring 2025. If not, it'll switch with Fantastic Four.
Oh God, you're killing me. Yeah. You're killing me, Smalls.
But it's not a bad idea to have Deadpool with Fantastic Four in the same summer.
I get it.
For very obvious reasons. Yeah.
You know what? I mean, just like what we talked about before, is like, you know what? As much as it hurts my heart, take your time. Don't rush it. Like we've been hearing about, things when it comes to these movies. Don't rush it. There's no point in having this now and having to wait 3 years to see Hugh come back in Secret Wars. It doesn't make any sense. Like if everything's being pushed back, you got to push back the flagship with it. So it's you know what I mean? So there's no point having it come out end of next year. The soonest it can possibly come is fall or holiday season next year.
Yeah. But also why even rush when one of your biggest things is you have the VFX people unionizing for one, and then two, you're getting consistent complaints about your movies being semi-rushed to begin with. So
exactly.
Yeah. You'd want that movie to look good, and you want it to be good. So
didn't Sean Levy say that they were also working on VFX at the
they're working
very
on
moment
post
for what they have?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, but they didn't prioritize the VFX heavy shots up front.
Fair enough.
Which is what he told us. Yeah.
True.
So he wasn't thinking about that at the time, because we asked him, we're like, hey, I say Collider asked him at our TIFF studio. But when Steve asked him, he says, did you prioritize your VFX heavy shots for the first half of production, knowing a strike could happen? And he's like, you know what? I really wish I did think of that. And they did not at all. So a lot of big, heavy things need to be done. And of course they can build assets. They know what the script demands and the production design, but you still got to do the superhero stuff. So it's 2025 spring or summer. Yeah,
probably. Yeah,
got it. Studios are to blame.
I'm perfectly fine with just catching up on reading and watching some like small independent movies in 2024. Letting my brain settle a break.
We still got
streaming. There's so much streaming content. There's like banger shows every week across the networks. We don't need movies right now being rushed.
2 weeks from now, we got Monarch coming from Apple TV.
It is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'm like saying, Rob, you've seen some of that.
I just got the final 3 episodes today, but I watched the first 5. Yeah,
nice.
And it's cool. I will say this. I'm allowed to say this. It's
Wait, did you say final 3? I thought it had 10 episodes. So did you only get 8?
I think it's. Oh,
I thought it was 10.
Is it 10? I thought it was 8.
I'm pretty sure it's 10. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure
8. So if there's still 2 more, that makes me upset now. But you ruined it for me. That was my night playing.
My bad.
What was I gonna say? So Apple, I think, has on average highest quality television. You look at like Foundation for All Mankind, it's just like super peak quality. I think Monarch isn't at that level when it comes to quality of the acting and writing. but they do not spare their expense on like the monsters and VFX at all. So it is a high production show. It's just not on the level. It's not like that 9 out of 10 level Apple TV show. It's like a 7.5, 8, but certainly miles ahead of what Godzilla 2 and Godzilla versus Kong were. So it's very smartly ignoring all those sequels, like because the timeline. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean they're
those movies.
it's building off of Kong Skull Island and Godzilla 1. Takes place a year after Godzilla, so it's forget the rest.
I love the fact that it's referencing Kong Skull Island because it's like, oh my god, like I thought that we wouldn't really touch that movie much. Besides, you know, the introduction of Kong, I just didn't think we'd ever go back to that like kind because Jonathan Goodman's character is somehow involved because he's in the marketing.
I love John Goodman.
Yeah, that's kind of how the show opens. Well, you know, like in Kong Skull Island, it ends with that tease of like the monarch being a thing.
Yeah,
right. We never.
I just didn't think we would ever go back to like that era of Kong Skull Island after we introduced Kong and we've moved forward. I just didn't think we'd ever.
Yeah, so it's the whole show is 2 timelines, right? It's a year after Godzilla, and then it's like in the 50s, starting Monarch, how it started, and like you kind of get to see why. Remember, like the beginning, kind of like you see like footage of like Godzilla being nuked in the 50s or 40s, whatever. You see like why that happened and how it started and stuff like that.
Cool.
So
Nice.
So
I like that.
It's neat. It plays with that, and there's references in the Godzilla movie, like little tiny things about like a ship that was lost in World War II here, and like that kind of stuff like appears in the show. You know what I mean? So it's I like how they kind of fit it in with that.
Very interesting. Yeah,
it's refreshing after what. My feelings in the franchise as a
I mean, let's face it. Like Godzilla 2014 was, I love that movie. Gareth Edwards, right? Did that?
Yes.
And
most of it.
Yeah, most of it. But you know, I just love how the skydiving scene was like, Jesus Christ.
Beautiful film.
Especially when they put that in the trailer, they're like, you know, talk about selling a movie. But even when you watch it within the movie, it's like he nailed like how small we are when it comes to. I mean, everything's so perspective of like, hey, we're looking up at this whole thing, and you know, obviously there's some divisiveness when it came to Bryan Cranston's character dying so quickly, and then you got Aaron Taylor Johnson driving the rest of the movie, which is like, okay, yeah, I can see why but for the movie as a whole, great. But yeah, when it came to King of the Monsters, it was like, that was cool, but whatever. And then I actually liked Skull Island. I liked that better than King of the Monsters. And then of course, when it came to Godzilla vs. Kong, I don't
just a bunch of fighting.
That's sort of Godzilla 2 was as well. They lost the quality of the story of the people on the ground. If you don't care about people, then we don't care about anything that's happening. You can't get invested.
Exactly.
And if it's just CGI monsters fighting, you can get that anywhere. That's not exciting. You have to have a reason. It has to be stakes and it has to be impactful. And one of the big complaints with Godzilla 2014 is like there wasn't enough monsters, right? But when you saw them, it was insane, and that's what mattered. Yeah. And you remembered it, like,
and the score that went along when you saw Godzilla, like the music, it's so impactful, especially like when like the airport sequence and he steps and like that's like swell, like, oh my god,
dude. And then the fact that he kept like teasing the reveal. I mean, there was like that spot where like you actually see Godzilla and he's about to scream and like the doors close. It's like, oh my god. You're just like, you have like blue balls all the way to like that final act pretty much. And then when he's about to like, you know, just light up
nuclear breath,
fire breath, and you see like the tail just go and it starts lighting up, and then he just and it's like, oh my god, it was so freaking
I think that was all intentional, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course. And that's the thing. So it's like, it kind of reminds me of like Pacific Rim to Pacific Rim 2. I don't even remember what the subtitle was. It was
Uprising.
Uprising.
Like I cared because it went from like, oh, Del Toro just gave us something just so
really cool.
That. Yeah, so cool. Look at like the details and like you cared about the characters too. What the fuck is this Power Rangers shit? Like it is like it really just it took like a dive. It took a dive, and I like John Boyega, I do, but it was just like, I remember watching that going, all right, well, the quality of this fucking, you know, thing just like, this story, everything went
I'm glad down. I never watched it. I saw the trailers and I'm like, this is not Pacific Rim to me. This is not Pacific Rim.
Toro took there's literally a part in the first Pacific Rim where or like one of the big robots is like punching and it like goes through like a building and you see like that little like like the 5 balls things that
Yeah.
it like touches that. It's so like zooms in and so detailed and the VFX looks so crisp. Like you see that and it's like just shit like that where a filmmaker goes, we got to do something like crazy. Like, but then you watch Pacific Rim Uprising, everything feels so fast and so just like they didn't care about the details or anything. It was just like, hey, they're fighting monsters. Look at them go.
Did it feel like at times that it was like Transformers, like Michael Bay, like where it's just like shit's just happening?
No, worse.
Yeah, but even Michael Bay does good.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know because like based on the trailers, okay, just get a bunch of Jaegers fighting giant creatures and there's no real rhyme or reason to it. It's just
it's too polished and too bright. There's no style to it. So
there's
it was very generic. It was very
generic. I'm not gonna say it.
I do want to say this because like I had mixed. I now to be fair, I haven't seen the original American Godzilla since I saw it in theaters. I was thrown off because I thought they teased Bryan Cranston and they teased the other actor, the great Japanese actor from Inception. I always forget his name.
Ken Watanabe.
Yes. I thought that the focus was going to be on those particular characters, and I was excited. I was so pumped, and then it's just Aaron Taylor Johnson mostly, and I was like, okay, and I wanted to see more of the fighting, and then we got it mostly in the third act, but it was a slow build up. So I guess for me, when I saw King of Monsters, it was like now it's like okay, now we're going to go full throttle, and I enjoyed King of Monsters, and I liked Kong Skull Island because I remembered seeing Peter Jackson's King Kong way back, and I felt that was just so long, and like it was kind of relentless, and I had a harder time with that movie as like when I was a kid. I think I saw it because it came out when I was in high school. So I liked Kong Skull Island because it was a bit different. It was almost like Vietnam meets King Kong, and I like Sam Jackson and John Goodman. I liked their characters on the ground. I thought that was like a cool focus. And then even John C. Reilly.
MCU characters in there.
Yeah.
How many MCU actors are in that movie? Anyways, Brie Larson.
Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Samuel Jackson, and John C. Reilly.
And John C. Reilly, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I thought those characters were cool, or at least there was an interesting focus there. And then, but yeah, when we got to Godzilla versus Kong, like, whatever enjoyment I had, it just kind of fell flat at that point. Because even with Godzilla versus Kong, you're like, okay, here we go, and it just like it didn't work for me. And again, it just kind of lost its steam. But yeah, I get now why Apple is doing the Monarch and trying to rebuild that mystique, and I like that, and I'm glad that they're doing all those.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Mr. Colbert right here. I mean, we've actually talked about it too. It's like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I mean, this is what I'm curious about when it comes to Craven. It's like he doesn't really carry. I mean, like obviously the Kick-Ass. I guess you could say the Kick-Ass movies, but even that had like kind of an ensemble. But it's just it seemed like when his the father dies, which is Bryan Cranston, and all of a sudden like, oh, okay, now we're just gonna follow the son, and it just that's where I think that's my problem with it. Also, it just didn't feel like it had a like when it came to the narrative of like who we're supposed to be following. I mean, everything else is so great and polished, and like I said, that skydiving sequence is all great, but it just once Bryan Cranston dies, you kind of go like, do we have a lead?
Yeah,
we don't really have a lead right now, because Aaron Taylor Johnson just doesn't fill those shoes. His character doesn't. And I really agree with Steven right there, where I think that's where that's where my gripes with it. But overall, still, everything else is just so great that I still love that movie.
To me, it's still miles ahead of whatever the hell the characters are doing in Godzilla 2 and 3.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't even tell you what the story was in 2. I just remember there's some lore stuff and then monsters.
Did it have they had the girl from Stranger Things?
Yep.
Yeah. Look what they did with that in the follow-up. Oh my gosh.
In Godzilla vs. Kong, like I think the only good thing was probably just the action between the two of them, and then even the Mechagodzilla was kind of questionable, but like sure, whatever, go crazy, they're working together. But the human side, I could give a shit. I was just waiting for the monsters to come back. I'm like, come on, let's get back.
Is that enough for you though? Do you like just seeing CGI monsters with colorful skies just going like? Is that to me? It's like playing a video game to me. It's meaningless.
I grew up loving Godzilla and King Kong, and so for me, it's like yeah, like the idea about investing in the human element, like that you need to have that. Because I think that's some of the better Godzilla films you actually cared about some of the human element
And
stuff.
even if there's no main characters or main characters you don't care about, what you just referenced, the old Toho film or any of the old films, almost all of it is like humans looking up and like, oh my god, and and feel for that.
Yeah. So
even in the campy ones.
So yes, do I wish Godzilla vs. Kong was better because the human stuff was just complete crap? I just don't care. Yes, but I do love the fact that the King Kong and Godzilla look great, and they're actually really in the fighting. It seemed like they're making it grand, like how they're destroying everything. But yes, the other elements just didn't work. It's like that one thing worked. Everything else, not so much. And
are you trying to tell me that you didn't care about Matthew Broderick and Hank Azaria in 1997?
Dude, I'll take that movie over most of these any day.
That's just like a weird amalgamation of just, like, what the fuck?
My favorite trivia fact about the Godzilla movie by Roland Emmerich in the 90s is that he hated Siskel and Ebert, and he named the mayor and the mayor's aide after them, and for whatever reason, he doesn't have them killed by Godzilla. And even Siskel and Ebert were like, not only is this movie terrible, he doesn't even have us killed in this movie. Like any other like good-blooded American would do in their movie. Like we just get away scot-free. And so I was like, yeah. But I don't know. I thought that was hilarious.
When that movie came out, though, I loved it. And of course, I mean, it's not.
And the soundtrack, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was typical 90s, like big, huge event movie. I mean, you have Godzilla showing up in New York. I mean, come on, you have to do it. I mean, obviously, there's like when you watch it, and it's very Jurassic Park when it comes to that final act with all the eggs, and when they're in the Madison Square Garden, whatever, and like all the mini Godzillas are like coming out. I mean, they really pulled. I mean, but it is like when you watch it again, you go like, oh my god, they really just like they Matthew Broderick just gave a pregnancy test to Godzilla and determined that, oh my God, Godzilla's
I think that
pregnant.
movie would have been better if it wasn't called Godzilla and maybe the design was changed a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that's just a dinosaur.
From what I know, and again, I'm not a hardcore Godzilla guy, but I think Toho and the Japanese hate that version so much. They actually made a Godzilla movie where they have real Godzilla kill that
Godzilla
Final Wars. Yeah.
Because Godzilla's always been a hefty dude, bottom heavy. And when it comes to Roland Emmerich's, I mean, he was like, it was very dinosaur. He was slim. He was a pretty
more real lizard thing.
Yeah, more lizard-esque as opposed to like the heavy, like, it was like a Godzilla that could fucking move.
So much so that in Final Wars, it's named Zilla. It's not even.
It's called Zilla.
It's called Zilla.
And I think it dies in like the first 10 seconds after it's showcased.
It's not.
He swipes him, and then he falls into the what is it? I forget what the building is called, but he falls into a building and then just atomic breath, and he dies. It explodes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of Deadpool 2, where Ryan kills X-Men Origins Wolverine Deadpool, and like from real, that's pretty much what happened.
That was because I think they had some. I think the design was submitted to them for Zilla, and they were like, no, and they distanced themselves from it because they were supposed to do like a collaboration effort, and they're like, we don't know, this is not Godzilla.
No,
and then the next year we had Godzilla 2000 that released in 1999. That was
that's right. Yeah,
Japan, but then it got a North America release because I remember seeing it in theaters. And I'm like, this is a year later, and this is really good.
Yeah, it was better than.
Yeah.
You know what's wild? Is like,
at the time.
Did anyone here on the panel see the new trailer for Godzilla -1?
Oh my god!
No, I haven't
Holy
seen it
shit! Okay, yes, it is phenomenal.
It looks so good.
It's going to be something pretty good.
Godzilla's so angry. He's so angry.
It's literally taking Godzilla back to its Toho roots. They make him the monster. They make him the threat. You get the POV of the people in Japan, Toho, whatever. And it's like he's just a straight up destructive force. And it is immaculate. Oh,
what do you think of the spikes elongating as he's powering up his atomic breath?
Okay, so the first half of my day at work, I was doing literally shit fuck all because I had nothing to do. And when I saw that trailer, when I saw that point, my mouth just fucking dropped. My jaw dropped. I was so happy to see that because it was like Godzilla 2014, but almost better.
Because it was like a slow up his back, and then as it's building up, and then then they're about to like show it, and then it cuts. I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yep, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love
it. I just
I mean,
right there with you.
adding a unique, you gotta, just it's like mainly everybody wants like, they want a similar, a same thing when it comes to these movies. It's like monster city, buildings falling, people looking up, but there's got to be something you gotta like. I mean, again, it's just like just goes back to like, how do you make Superman, bring him into modern day, and how do you differentiate like to from the previous versions? It's like it can be hard, I guess you could say, even for like a Godzilla type. It's like because Godzilla's always like we just think about those old movies where you got a dude in a fucking a rubber costume that is just like tearing down like a miniature city. We've seen that 1,000 times, and it's like, how do you modernize, and because it's just like there's only so much you could do. I mean, I can almost say like same thing with Superman, is like what else can you do and everything like that. And it's like it's hard to write for Superman. It seems like Batman's pretty easy, because they keep on pumping out Batman versions for sure, but Superman seems like he's more successful on TV than he is on cinema,
well,
for sure.
I think with Superman, I think one, he's a little bit better with long form storytelling, because his stories tend to be more kind of almost fantasy in a sense, if we're being honest. But Grant Morrison always had a good quote about Superman, about writing him and stuff. He says basically what you do is you take an ordinary problem and you Superman size it, essentially. Like I'm paraphrasing, but like a normal person, they'd wake up, they take their dog for a walk, they take the dog around the neighborhood. Maybe they run into a neighbor that they didn't want to talk to, and they have to deal with that while making sure the dog doesn't run off, and and then bring the dog back home, and then that's the day. Superman has crypto, so he would bring crypto, and crypto needs to go around the solar system to get tired. So like he takes crypto around. Maybe when he's out doing crypto, he runs into Lobo, and then he has to fight Lobo, and then grab crypto, and then get crypto back to Earth in time, or but that's just one primary example. But that's basically what he would say, is that you have Superman have his problems, but you just have to basically make him Superman size, So like that's kind of it. But that's why I've always found Clark Kent stuff always more fascinating to a degree too, because juxtaposing that with Superman, I've always found that to be like way more like one of the best. I know you and goddamn, I can't remember his name.
Brandon. Or we just who?
Scott. You and Scott are going to the Superman animated series right now. One of my favorite episodes is when he finds some information out as Clark Kent, and he chooses to go give the information as Clark Kent so he can give a win for Clark Kent, and then his car explodes and he goes into the river, and then he thinks he has to basically have Clark Kent like erased, essentially, like, or Clark has to die.
I remember this episode,
Yeah, and it's a great episode, but it's Superman having to juggle like this Clark Kent problem, and I always thought that was like more interesting than even like like Mr. Mxyzptlk showing up sometimes. Granted, those are great episodes too, but like it was a good change of pace.
Well, so, I mean, like even the recent episode we talked about the episode Identity Crisis, which is the introduction to Bizarro. Yeah. And, it was just kind of funny because if you're watching it fresh, I mean, obviously we've seen this stuff. It's been around for, 25 years or whatever, but it's just like, this is an episode that has a Superman that's flying around, and then, something happens where Clark and Lois, like, they have to, like, she kind of crashes and Clark goes flying out of the car over into the ocean, and Superman swoops him up and saves him. And he's like, like what? And then they're like all three talking, and like you're finally seeing a Clark Kent and a Superman. And then Superman's acting all like, the Boy Scout. And then it goes, hey, how about dinner tonight, Lois? And blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, what? And then he just basically goes, I'm going to go ahead and like go for a walk. And Lois is like, what are you talking about? There's no civilization for like 10 miles. And he's like, well, it's us country folk, because it's like, he has to like go, he is so like, what the fuck did I just see? I just saw myself in front of me, and I'm trying to process it while trying to be Clark Kent and being like, oh yeah, this is Superman, guys. But I'm just like, I have to figure this out. So he has to tell Lois, I'm going to go for a walk down this highway of, that has no city, the metropolis is like 20 miles away, but he's just like, I'm going to do it. And then of course he, turns into Superman and tries to figure it out. But it's just, it's kind of like those moments that, where yeah, that's the moments that we like when it comes to especially the animated series, you know.
Yeah, and it's that whole but it harkens back to that relatability factor. With Batman, you can have almost any story fall into his lap, and Batman has now because he's been around for so long, he can be a team member of a giant global organization that has to stop aliens, or he can be a guy who's, you know, looking over a murder case. It can be, you know, it's all over the map basically with what Batman can basically do.
True.
And Superman can do kind of the same thing, but because he has this, well, I honestly, the Silver Age has probably done more damage than good to some degree, because even to this day, people have that image of him being invulnerable to everything, when in reality, it's like, no, magic, kryptonite. There's a lot of different things that can fuck him up, and the post-crisis Superman is a lot more vulnerable to many different things, and he has a lot more different types of problems that he has to deal with, basically. So it's like, you know, I like the idea of Superman. I think if you want to do, we've talked about this to death, but if you want to do a relatable Superman, you have to have it be in a sense where he's interacting with people on the ground more than anything else. And I think that's how you do it. If you want to do the big invasion, you can do that, but like make the stories kind of smaller and more intimate. And like I think that's the way that you write them, or whatever. Sorry, we're going up on wild tangents, but that's my two cents.
No, that's fine. But I did want to I wanted to ask Rob, like, you know, because it's been a while since we talked. I mean, what are your thoughts when it comes to James Gunn and the DCU and everything? I just want to like get kind of like your opinion on that. But before we do that, I know Jordan, Phil, you guys got to go.
Yeah,
so yeah,
I got to get some sleep. I shouldn't have come on, but I wanted to hang out. So, and my wife passed out. We still have not yet to finish the Fall of House of Usher. We're still
man,
we're at the finale, and we finally got to this point. Yeah, she's like, I can't do the finale. I'm like, whatever. She passed out. So whatever. We're gonna hopefully watch it tomorrow. But yeah, so
it's a good time. It's a good show.
Yeah. It was
all right. Yeah, plug whatever you guys want to plug, and
Chainsaw Reacts everywhere. Council of Creators every Wednesday on the channel. Hopefully we'll get Dave on at some point. Phil's been on. It's been nice having Phil on. It's always cool to have him on. But yeah, Chainsaw Reacts everywhere. That's where I am.
And you guys can find me anywhere, just at Unfiltered, Twitter, Vero, Blue Sky, Instagram. Yeah, and I'm on the Four Nerds every Wednesday. I got the Eternal Night, even though me and Craig haven't done an episode in weeks. We kind of need to get back into that. And I want to try, I'm hoping to get the DC United show up and running by November 17th. That's the launch date as of right now. Nice. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining.
Thank you so much.
For the invite.
Guys, good night.
Much love. Take care.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, guys.
But yeah, before we, we'll probably wrap this up in a little bit. But I'm just like, saying like, Rob, what are your thoughts when it comes to James Gunn and DCU? Because it is kind of interesting right now, because we have Marvel and we have DC just kind of just trying to, I don't know. I mean, DC is, of course, like always, like recently have been, struggling, even though when it comes to the Snyder stuff, it turned into something completely different. But Marvel was like the dominant one for a decade, and then all of a sudden now it's like, so they're both, but anyway.
Marvel Studios was the ragtag group that got pulled into a big giant corporate stringent structure, and then but you're right, it was hitting home runs. So DC tried to fast track a copycat and failed miserably, and it all fell apart, and layers of turnover at executive committee level, and it all caused more mess. And now they hit the reset button first before Marvel did. So they're finally leading the charge on the reset.
There you go.
Like this, what they did with Gunn is happening way before Secret Wars comes out. So I say that knowing Secret Wars is not actually a true reset. It's going to be a lot of actors still around, obviously. But the James Gunn thing's interesting. I think him and Safran are a good combo, assuming, disclaimer, that they actually can run it the way they want to for 5 years at least, right? Safran's a good money man. He knows the business. He knows the people. James Gunn, everyone listens to him. He's very talent friendly. He just knows how to make movies. And we talked about this before in the show. Like, the thing about him as a filmmaker is like he's one of the few guys who doesn't really miss in terms of like completing a product, right? He delivers on time. He's always under budget. He gets everything done. Always. And it's, thinking back, I don't really think of any misses. He doesn't really fail. Like, I love Peacemaker. The Suicide Squad was great. Like, he He does. Guardians 3 was better than I expected, and I appreciate it even more upon rewatch. He doesn't miss, and these are sometimes complicated things, right? Or in the case of Guardians 3, he came back to a studio that fired him. But again, the actors and the crew rallied behind him, and there's a reason why all of his products have the same crew and the same cast. They all want to work with him, and they all stood up for him behind and in front of the scenes. So that counts for a lot in this disgusting industry we call Hollywood, right? So despite all the weirdness, and the weirdness right now for me is like what they're saying to the public. And it's this weird, awkward PR dance of like, what's going to be, which actors and which films matter, which ones are continuing, which ones are not. Aquaman 3 is the start, it's the end. Is Momoa back as Aquaman, or is he playing a new character? Like, they've not been truthful or clear on that since they were announced as the spearheads of this new DCU. That's the tricky part, but I think everything will be gravy once Aquaman just disappears and they can start fresh, proper. I think once they start delivering products, and once we all see what they actually are, because some of the ones they announced are not what we think they are, and once they announce the rest of it, like, they have a plan, which is exciting. They have a plan. They've only told you bits of it, and the bits they did tell us, they only told you bits of that. It's not what we think. But they brought us to the studio and sat down, talked to us, and said, "Here's what we're thinking, guys. What do you think?" Like, who does that? Like, before they even started, you know what I mean?
Really?
Like, yeah. Well, you know that. That's how they announced the first 10 films. Like, they brought us to the lot.
Yeah, with
we sat in a little room. They showed us a bunch of logos that were mock-ups, and then we just shot the shit with them. You know what I mean? And like, that does not happen. They gave us 10 products, which is half of their chapter 1 or whatever, right?
The Gods and Monsters.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And once you start coming out, like, if the first 2 or 3 are bangers, then nothing we say now, last year, next year matters at all. Like, it's you know, and the question is he going to deliver? Well, the data would suggest that they fucking are going to deliver, right? Because they don't miss. So, I
mean, the way I've always looked at it is like, when people are like, "Oh, it's going to flop," I'm like, "No, it's not." "Oh, it's going to be $1 billion."
Like, yeah, once
I know, I'm like, but is it going to be $1 billion movie? I'm like, no, maybe not that either. But I think all they need to do is make sure that they have. I mean, like you said, I mean, and Gunn even said that on the Rosenbaum podcast, is like, he comes in under budget, and that's what you want in somebody who's, I mean, that's the thing, is like, if you have a filmmaker that can do that, then that's good. That's good. Under budget,
on time. His crew and cast are happy and want to keep going.
Yeah,
always profitable. But the biggest thing, and I've said this before with you as well, is he pre-plans every detail meticulously. His scripts note the music cues. He storyboards himself every fucking sequence and the angle of the camera. It's all done, like, before they even start. He knows exactly what he wants. And if he doesn't, if something's not working, they will change it. And he said this again in his meeting with us. If a product comes, we finish a movie or a TV show and it's not good enough, we're not putting it out. We're going to keep working on it until it's good enough. Could you imagine if Hollywood operated that way? It's everything we talked about Marvel is doing. It's like, so imagine he's pitched the dream scenario. Now, will they deliver? It depends on the other filmmakers they bring in. But if he has full control, they're just going to move people if it doesn't work, right? So I'm not worried about Gunn's products. I'm worried about the others, right? So, but if he's the mastermind behind it all and has full creative control, like, he'll just replace people. We'll get it done.
That's the thing, is like, I mean, like, one of the things I always say is like, he's seen the Marvel machine, you know, working. Like, he was like, Feige's like, "Hey, give me notes on this, and then of course when it came to Guardians, he helped pave the Infinity War saga with all the Infinity Stone stuff, and, you know, incorporating that in Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a movie that should not have worked if you think about it, you know. And that's why I like the fact that he's all about bringing in these obscure, you know, characters that. And we have a Superman that is already established. We don't need an origin story. I'm sure there's going to be references to the origin story.
Sure, it's still young Superman, so the reference.
Yeah, he's only going to be a couple years in, or a few years in, whatever the hell. But I just like the fact that there's other heroes that are involved. And I know, like, I mean, I love it, you know, the hyperbole that I see like online, where like people are just like, "I thought this was supposed to be a Superman film." I was like, yeah, it is. I mean, do you think like these characters are going to be in like the whole time? They probably just show up and then that's it. It's like, there's going to be like, you know, little scenes, of course, but I do like the fact that we have these characters, and not characters, that are like, super known. And yeah, we have a Green Lantern, but it's not Hal Jordan Green Lantern. We have Hawkgirl, and everything like that. It's like, I do like, and I'm curious to see, like, what are these scenes that they're going to be involved in? What is that? So
yeah,
I am very curious.
Those pieces will set up the iconic versions of these characters, right? I imagine you're going to meet Hal and John, and when they get to that point or whatever, right? So, yeah, of course. Which makes sense, and he's a master with small characters. That is the blueprint of Guardians and the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, right? And it works. But if you listen to the same Michael Rosenbaum podcast I'm thinking of, he said this there and in many other interviews, that his criticism he's being pretty direct about it as well, about Marvel and all these studios making blockbuster films, but specifically superhero films, is that they're making products based on IP they think is valuable, and they just deliver the thing. And that's what's happening with Marvel so much. But in the conversation that we all have and they all have, they're not talking about building it based on a character story. They're building it because it's an IP, right? With him, it's like it only happens if you have a really good character story. And then they can wrap it around, throw in all the pieces they want. And that's why it's less relevant about which version of Green Lantern you get, because whatever they chose, they have a very specific story they want to tell with that character. And it weaves into a larger character story, right? And the whole movie is built around that arc. Nothing, if that doesn't work, nothing else happens. Everything else doesn't matter. And that's the blueprint from the beginning, from a guy who meticulously plans everything, who always comes under budget, always delivers on time, and has like one of the best track records in terms of the critical acclaim and box office performance now in this arena. So, I mean, it's hard to knock it. I mean, it's and also like look at the status we are now. And I know, we've had many conversations with DC and Snyder and everything. And the truth of it is, like, people talk online, what we see on YouTube and social media, it is absolutely irrelevant to what people will go to the box office to see, right? Well, I know this because I have the greatest access to data online on planet Earth when it comes to entertainment. I know this because we have like 9 of the biggest entertainment sites on the planet, and I work with 2 data analytics companies. One of them I can't even announce, but it's like, so I see exactly what people are actually searching for, clicking, reading, and I see what they're doing next. You know what I mean? And then we know the box office results. So people say, "Oh my God, Avatar 2 is going to bomb." I was laughing in their fucking faces. They have no idea. And it's
well, I mean, I'm also friends with Stephen Colbert, who's a very analytical person.
Exactly. Steve's a very smart dude. He gets it. He understands, right?
He does.
You have to have that perspective. But what people say, like the questions people ask, like, who's going to care about this? Or are people really going to go see Superman? It's like, you don't know anything until that first trailer comes out. And then what happens when people see footage and talk about it online? And does that talk spread to the morning talk shows? Right? Like, you know what I mean?
Morning talk shows.
Or anything like that.
No, you bring an interesting point. I just didn't even think about that, because, what's kind of funny is, like, I live in Southern California, LA, of course, one of the biggest markets, obviously. And I listen to Heidi and Frank, they're the morning show. It's from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But it's kind of funny when, because they have like a dude that like handles like the movie stuff. And in between, like, segments, you'll hear like something, and he'll talk about things that I'm talking about, on my channel, like all this kind of shit, and I'll hear it from him. And I'm like, why the fuck are they're talking about that too? Like,
but you'll notice it's like, very basic, surface level analysis when you hear the morning radio shows or talk shows or other things. Like, it's not like everything. Us here, YouTube, like Paul, like we know what we're talking. We read the comics, those shows, the history, whatever. But the people on the morning talk shows, they're just like, oh, whatever. Hey, new Batman's coming out. Ben Affleck's in it. Is he still with J-Lo, or is it Jennifer Garner? What's going on? It's like, but it gets people thinking. Those are people that buy the tickets. People that buy the tickets are not on Twitter. Like, Twitter's like 1% of that. It's meaningless. So you got to and that analytics I'm looking at are every platform, right? So that's kind of what I gauge real interest in. So, I was gonna say something I really shouldn't, but yeah, but yeah. So like, it's hard. DC's always been in a weird spot. They can never get it off the ground since Nolan kind of delivered something huge, but also kind of tied their hands behind their back in a way, a little bit. So now that they can have a universe starting from a clear starting point with clear, I don't use the visionaries, but two people have a vision that are in control. Like that's the ultimate ultimate best case scenario after years of tumultuous craziness and financial woes and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be positive, because you look at the industry blueprint, any other major motion picture house or any streamer, where does this happen anywhere else? Like there's nowhere. There's no sub film like studio with this much IP and value that has full control like that and can start from scratch. No,
I mean, it is interesting because, like, I mean, obviously when Marvel Studios, you know, when the first Iron Man came out, I mean, I remember even thinking at the time, I'm like, oh wow, they're gonna do an Iron Man movie. That's interesting. When it comes to Marvel, like, okay, you think they would start, you know, with something more like, you know, that people are like, oh, I don't, but the fact of the matter is like they nailed it. And then of course DC tried to be like, oh, we're gonna do Green Lantern, maybe that's gonna be our Iron Man, and of course that was a shit show, even though like the pieces were there, but you know the script was not.
Studio nightmare. I mean, you know, like the writers that came in and replaced in this and that, even Jeff Johns got involved. It's just craziness. It was a disaster behind the scenes. So
I feel sorry for Martin Campbell, because I think
legit director got screwed.
He got screwed over when it came to that too. So but I mean, it's just like it's you know, what I'm excited about when it comes to James Gunn is like the fact that DC has always been trying to capture the Marvel machine. It's like he's been part of the Marvel machine, so he goes, yeah, okay, we could do that, or I know what we could do something different from the Marvel machine that might work, you know.
Yeah, and the beauty is he doesn't have to think about Marvel anymore. He's like, I'm doing my own thing. Like I've seen that. That's whatever. This is my own thing, my own story, my own way, starting from scratch. And the best part is, like you're saying, he has all the learnings from that. And now the learnings from their mistakes as they try to recover themselves, and all the issues with Disney and all the previous issues with Warner Brothers. This only started because they have a deal with whoever, Zaslav or whatever's going on at WBD, like to do everything their way for X amount of time. And I think that's brilliant. And while I'm certainly curious about the selection of the first 10 products for sure, I think when the marketing hits for that first thing, and of course Superman Legacy, I think people are going to lose their minds. And I bet it'll have better box office performance than the last time Superman had a solo outing. So,
I think so. You really think so? All right.
Yeah, it's hard not to. I mean, of course, this is another COVID, and we've just given up on theatrical, and half the theater shut down because of the strikes. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah,
too.
That's really true.
I mean, exhibition's not doing too gravy right now, but
so I mean, like, I that's the thing. Is like when it comes to Superman Legacy. I mean, if once everything is done with the strikes, which hopefully that happens soon, but obviously, like nothing's going to be like kicking in the gear till next year, because we're just in the holiday season right now, but. I mean, the first reveal of the costume is going to blow up the internet. Let's face it. I mean, anytime that they show something from this movie, it will blow up the internet. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's going to be, you know, there's going to be fans
now,
that are.
Can I stop you right there? We say internet. You're right. The Superman costume is always an iconic drop, right?
Yeah.
But everything else, all the supporting characters and costume reveals and character reveals, we are going to talk about that.
But not the general.
But 95% of people that buy box office tickets won't give a shit about that. Unless it's one of the main, like if it's Batman or Superman, yes. But if it's Mr. Terrific or whoever, no one's
going to care about that.
I can write a ton of articles about it because I'm fine if 50,000 people read an article about it, but you need 100 million people buying tickets to make $1 billion. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a huge difference, and that audience is not on Twitter. So you know what I mean? That's always the thing we have to keep in mind. When it comes to
it's just
the financials of it all.
It's going to be an interesting 2024 with everything pushed back. And, you know, I mean, I don't know if like how much this is going to affect like Superman Legacy. I mean, obviously, if they don't come up with a deal, they can't shoot in January like he was wanting to shoot. But yeah. So that's going to, of course, have an effect. I mean, I think it was just revealed like the other day that Creature Commandos is not going to come out next year either. It's going to come out in 2025. There was like a video of somebody like an animator talking about that who's working on the movie said like, oh yeah, this is going to come out in 2025. But I mean, so 2024 is going to be interesting because of how many things have got pushed or whatever the hell with all this stuff that
it makes sense. A lot of things need to get pushed back, and for these big franchises that have multiple components coming out each year, it makes sense to move the whole group back instead of having like one thing by itself and waiting. That's the same thing with the whole Deadpool situation. I'm like, just push it back. Push it back with the other stuff. All the other big things got pushed back. Push it back too. There's no rush. I mean, they're not shooting a sequel to that right away anyways, right? So there's no point. Yeah, and then all the films that got delayed out of Q4 this year are coming next year anyways to replace the ones that will get delayed. It's just a domino effect. So it's not the biggest thing. We have Dune, right? And by the way, Dune speaks to my previous point too. The reason Dune's not coming out now is because they couldn't roll out that cast at Comic-Con and couldn't bring him on the circuit right now. They want Timothée Chalamet and that whole cast of stars everywhere. They need Zendaya out there. You know what I mean?
Dude, isn't that crazy? How man, when you have an ensemble cast, I could totally get that. But when it comes to the Marvels, you would have thought man, you have that three, just
I think the secret sauce. It was. Again, I gotta be careful here.
No, you don't.
I'm almost surprised the Marvels is coming out now. I'll say that. Given what discussions are happening in the spring, I'll say. But I think one of the secret sauces of this, what should have been, is having Iman Vellani out there in the circuit. I think she's the star you put out there on the night shows. I think she's the one that gets viral clips. I think she's the one everyone loves. Yeah. I think she's a star for the future of the MCU.
That's why I'm watching the movie. Yeah,
100%. And everything I said about Miss Marvel is true. Her and her family and friends is the show. The moment they had an episode about time travel and these awful villains, it was like, you've ruined it. Yeah. I could have had 6 episodes of her hanging out with her family. That's one of the greatest shows that Marvel's done. And the style of it, her just walking home from school and you see her thoughts in the windows of the shops. It's like, yes. Or the camera angles of the it's just like, it's genius. And it seems simple in the grand scheme of Marvel spectacle, but it's beautiful. Right? And it's an amazing character. Yeah. Anyways, I'm bummed by that. But yes, I think you need her. And is it Tana Paris plays Monica Rambeau? I think, you need her out there too. So, so without them, that's not helping their downtrending.
Well, I think that, when it comes to marketing, if they could have those three doing, junkets and of course, just interacting with each other, doing funny bits and doing all that stuff would have really helped the marketing of this movie. And I think not having those three do that, obviously, yes, they would have gotten the hate from, as much as they do. But at the same time, it's like there would have been more praise, to be honest, and everything. So I think they could have done something, they could have just the marketing, the next 2 weeks. Well, now we're a week away. But if they could have just been doing all kinds of just things, the three of them. And, nobody really, obviously Brie Larson's more of the name, sure. But at the same time, just having the three of them and, obviously in this world of hey, we got to be diverse. I got to do all this. And that's a diverse cast right there. Diverse 3 leads right there. Sure. But they could have really done something really cool when it comes to the marketing of the 3 of them. And the fact that they don't have that, it's just it's hurting the movie a little bit, sadly.
Yeah. I think, oh, sorry, bro.
No, I was going to say to your point, Disney agrees with you because we were pitching on fun, creative, not your standard stuff. Right?
Exactly.
The 3 of them.
Oh, I know that was in. So. I'm sure that was in the works. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say I think Brie Larson kind of benefited the most in terms of the MCU stuff because, obviously in real life as a person, she has a vibrant personality, as shown in other movies that she's done. But if we're being truly honest, Captain Marvel, I don't think has any real personality until that one cameo in Shang-Chi at the very end. That's where she actually starts to show more of an actual personality. And you could have pivoted that with, obviously I'm assuming it's going to be in the Marvels, but in terms of the advertising campaign, they could have had her, working off the other 2 and kind of making that an ensemble thing and showing, more of the Carol Danvers character kind of, this is a different take than Captain Marvel, so to speak.
You're right, and that's so needed for the character because the character was super underserved. Obviously, in the Avengers, just shows up as a powerhouse and the inconsistent designs and all this kind of weird stuff, and then was completely thrown under the bus with Secret Invasion, where they set her up as a character who just didn't care and left these refugees alone and never came back to help or check on these Skrulls. And it's what? I have thought for sure the finale had Captain Marvel showing up. No, you're getting a CGI abomination thing.
The way Carol has been handled as far as the MCU goes, it's really a disaster because on top of the fact that Thanos was allowed to happen, the fact that the Skrull stuff has gone completely off the rails, and not even counting the Eternals. I'm talking in terms of her power set, but also kind of what she has command over, or at least kind of can interfere with. Carol's not really doing her job. like, or at least as far as Earth is concerned. So it's like,
yeah,
I'm waiting for the pushback on that, or someone to respond. And instead, well, just from the trailers anyway, it just seems like we're just going to have, Camilla fangirling out. But I'm also wondering, like, if Camilla was being realistic, wouldn't she be kind of also complaining a lot more towards Carol?
I hope so. There's a lot of conversations need to happen. Also, like with the way Secret Invasion ended, it's like all this Skrull stuff. Like, is he just gonna be happy Nick Fury ignoring all that? You can't.
That's
do
what
that.
I'm wondering too when it comes to the Marvels. Like, where's this supposed to? Is this supposed to be after?
Yeah,
or before? It's supposed to be after.
Yeah,
Well,
pretty sure it's after.
Does he go back to space at the end of
Yes.
this? Okay. I couldn't
That's right. He does go back. Yeah, because we see him give.
Yeah, I think we figured that out because the timeline of something when Miss Marvel happened, we were able to confirm that this is after or something. I forget. This is like
right.
Because
she has the wristband. She goes into a closet and then Carol pops out. Right.
And there's a thing in the calendar of when that takes place versus something. I don't know. It's all.
Right. Oh, that's probably in the book too, right? The timeline.
Yeah, even the book doesn't fully explain dates because you remember everyone saying today's the day the Battle of Earth happened and Iron Man died, and it's like that's not. We don't know that's the actual date. It's not October 17th. The book doesn't even say that. But everyone's on Twitter, and I asked like every single person, like, where do you get this information from? Because they all quote the official timeline. Like, there's no official timeline that says this. I asked people at Marvel and Disney. That is not a real thing. So not yet. Anyways, I'm sure they'll retcon that.
I think like the only thing that they like fixed with the timeline was like the when it came to 8 years later, or like it was like the timeline of Spider-Man Homecoming where you saw the beginning with
8 year gap.
8 years later.
Yeah, the 8 year gap. Yeah. They said like that was actually a mistake or something like that. They actually
for sure was. That was absurd.
Yeah, that was like what everybody was like 8 years. What? Yeah.
Well, I haven't read the book, but I had a friend of mine who works at Newbury Comics, and so he has access to those things more often. He looked through it, and he has told me that there are 1 or 2 pages or so that have Miss Minutes show up on it and says, we're not sure about this just yet, or this may change. I don't know if that's supposed to be a Loki tie-in or whatever, or something that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you have any information, Rob, feel free to share.
No, I don't on that. I didn't know Miss Minutes was in the book. I just I asked for very specific dates and no one gave me right answers. But no, I mean, why not? I mean, that is the time travel show that's answering the multiverse and time travel issues. And if they're going to be changing things and retconning things potentially, then that's a smart way to do it in the book. I'll say that much. But
just put Miss Minutes in there.
Paul, to your point about like Carol Danvers is kind of like not being there on Earth. The other, my biggest gripe, I say biggest, one of my major gripes from the get-go since Guardians with the MCU is like the lack of focus on the cosmic side. The whole plan was to keep growing that, and we haven't seen any cosmic focus stories. And even Guardians itself as a trilogy, as much as I love it, it is very self-contained. It's its own thing. It doesn't really expand the universe. Minimal impact on Earth. It's just, I love it for being character focused, but like we haven't seen any of the cosmic factions or wars.
You get snippets. You get like the Nova Corps, or you get Adam Warlock, and it's all kind of like I want to say it's Guardianized.
Eternals a little bit too. Right?
They're like teases in the Guardians movies that are never expanded upon, and even in Infinity War when we meet Thanos, he already has the Purple Stone. So he already went to Xandar and blew everyone up. Like, where's that movie? I'm sure that's the prologue for Nova. But
I almost feel like that's their plan, is that when we get to Nova, they're going to do like, I don't know if they're going to do Ryan Ryder or whatever his name is, because I'm not as familiar with Richard Ryder. I'm not as familiar with the cosmic side as much as I'd like to be with Marvel. But my thought was, when that happened, or when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, well, I know they're planning Nova down the line anyway. And then when they open Nova, they'll probably open with Thanos killing everybody on that, to get the stone, and then like the remnants of Nova and like where that goes. But we haven't heard Jack anything.
No, Nova's been mentioned a bunch of times by Kevin. We always ask him for fun. He's like, maybe it's coming down the road. It's like, okay, sure. But they have to explain, because Nova is that's a problem with the first Guardians movie, is that the background of that is that there's a Kree Xandar war or whatever, right? But we never see any. It doesn't seem like a planet in war because there's zero defense systems. It seems like this beautiful utopia. And when they get attacked by what is essentially a dropping brick that has no weapons on it, they can't stop it. The only thing they have to defend themselves are these little like mosquitoes they fly up there and make a web. And it's like, that's you're at war and this is what you have? Because the concept art I saw on set had like space battleships and all this kind of stuff that never made it into the movie. But I would imagine that Nova got so embarrassed by Thanos, who didn't have a stone at the time, destroying that planet probably, or most of Xandar. I think Nova Corps and the World Mind probably were like, okay, now we need our own version of the Avengers. We'll build the superpowered Nova Corps as you know them from the comics, and that would be the origin of Richard Rider. That's how I would write it. Hire me, Kevin.
I'm interested too if they're gonna do, because I know Al Ewing did, because they had to keep the Ultimates name before they revived the Ultimate Universe, but they did essentially Avengers in Space, which was the Ultimates. I'm wondering if they want to build up to that at some point.
I think they are. I think that's why the space station exists. So that's their base. I think that's you're gonna get the Alpha Flight Ultimates version. It's gonna have you already have Monica Rambeau now. Right. You introduced Blue Marvel in there, and I mean, ideally you would have had a version of Black Panther in there as well, and then you get some Alpha Flight members or whatever version of that in the MCU, and it's like boom, that's Carol Danvers' team. They're the Cosmic Avengers.
Are the Ultimates located within Sword? Are they connected, or are they separate entities? Or I'm going off comics. I'm not going off necessarily MCU, but
well, in the comics as I read them, they were on the what's the name? I keep saying what's the name of the space station?
Well, I'm assuming
Hammer
Sword.
Yeah, Sword. Right. Yeah. Well, the comics you and I have read, then like even the comics where like they go help Galactus, and Galactus becomes a good god or whatever. Like they were kind of their own team working from that station. With what's the faction you were saying?
Well, the Avengers in Space eventually became the Ultimates for 616 because they didn't want to lose the name or the title, but they hadn't revived the Ultimate Universe yet at that point.
I see what you mean. Yes, I think that's what you're going to get. Essentially, I would imagine that team would be called that. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be interesting to see if that's what they end up doing. But yeah, I mean, you could do a lot of this. You could set up a lot of this in the Marvels, and I'm hoping that that's there somewhere.
I think so. I think these are your characters. This is the starting of that. You have the space station, you have Fury, and which is Shield has evolved into this, and now you have the beginnings of your cosmic team. I honestly think that's what this is setting up. I mean, obviously they have to deal with 2 Avengers movies in between that. So, but this is they now have insane technology apparently up there. So. With an army of Skrulls, so they have to have some version of that, whether they call it the Ultimates or not. But I think Ultimates make sense.
Yeah, I mean, at least for the MCU and keeping that title and utilizing that franchise, so to speak. That I want to talk just very briefly the James Gunn stuff. And again, I don't disagree with a lot of your points. I think, and obviously you know more about the business than I do. You have a lot more behind the scenes stuff and whatnot. And frankly, like I don't hate James Gunn as a filmmaker. I don't always agree with his like a lot of his movies, but I understand like why people like them and like and I enjoy 1 or 2 of them myself. But I feel that regardless of what his plan is or how meticulous he is or how everything is put out, the whole board that he showed you and everything. I've talked with Dave about this multiple times and Phil as well. I don't trust Warner Brothers. Like I don't trust Warner Brothers Discovery in general. And not to say that Zaslav does not want to be, not that he doesn't want to make profit, but between the pandemic doing their own things, and then on top of that with the strikes, I mean, let's be realistic. We're probably not going to get Superman Legacy until most likely mid or late 2025, right?
Yeah, it'll probably get pushed.
Yeah, and on top of that, we aren't even fully confirmed how much control James Gunn does have. As you've mentioned, you're hoping that he and Saffron have as much control.
I can tell you what he told us.
Yeah, but again, there's what they tell you, and that's what they tell you.
Well, I can also. I mean, what's the reality of that? Imagine if James Gunn doesn't get what he wants. What do you think happens then?
Well, I think I was telling Dave and I was telling Phil, and we keep bringing up over and over again. And again, just to make it's more. It's coming from a place of me just being like prepared. It's kind of like when you have an alcoholic parent, and you're hoping dad shows up to the baseball game, but if he doesn't, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I should have expected that. Like you have to prep yourself. You're like, that's where I'm at with DC movies at this point.
I get it.
Whether you're pro Snyder or pro Gunn or whatever. And I've said to my friends, I was like, guys, because I've seen them, they get excited about Gods and Monsters, and I'm like, guys, let's just remember in the background this is happening. Mm-hmm. And it's more of like, I'm like, it doesn't matter to me necessarily how much, James preps, whether he's, got all these great ideas or not. To me, frankly, there could be a million things that could be happening, because if, say, Superman Legacy, because let's be honest, that's the film that's going to be the one that's going to decide everything else. If Superman Legacy underperforms, I'm not saying bombs, I'm just saying just underperforms, that might be it. and that might be the catalyst to not follow through with any of the other things, or they just rework everything.
That's
But
fair.
not even that. This is more rumor based, but like it's not a secret that Universal wants to buy Warner Brothers, or at the very least their IPs, or whatever the case is. If that happens, that is likely to happen in 2025. Now, James may have his movie. He may fully make it, and it may be ready to go, and he's ready to put it out, and it may get put out. But if it's not what Universal wants to move forward with, if they end up becoming the new guys, running the ship again, like with Warner Brothers, we've had like a new head of whatever every couple of years now, that they may look at James's plan and be like, no, we're good. We're going to go somewhere else. And then that's now the new plan, or whatever that may be, whatever they
We're going to have Vin Diesel as Lex Luthor.
No, I'm not trying to put a curse on anybody here, but I'm just trying to be, I want to be realistic, I guess is the best way.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But again, I think Rob has every reason to be optimistic. I'm sort of playing the devil's advocate.
No, you're right. No, you're right. No one should trust WB or Discovery or Zaslav. No one. That'd be insane.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely insane. But you got to consider the alternative. They had to virtually beg to make this happen, right? James Gunn did not have to take this.
No,
and it's only happening because him and Safran are doing it their own way. And it only exists because of that. And there's no better alternative because no one else will do it. No one else can. No one has that combination of the filming, creative knowledge, all this stuff. Like what other filmmaker has that much knowledge about DC Comics and also makes films, also writes them, also could run the business? You know what I mean? And all the things I talked about earlier. And so and if he got pushed out, or if he says, even if it's diplomatic and he creative differences, whatever, there's no one else of that stature going to come in and take that job in the same way. It will not exist anymore. And can Warner Brothers afford to mess with the DC IP again after all of these steps of failures? And now we finally have a solution, and they're going to fuck up the solution. And as for Universal, do they interfere with Blumhouse films?
Ooh, they do not.
It's its own house. True, if they won the lottery and got the DC universe, it would just be its own house under Universal. And boy, wouldn't they like that for their theme parks? They wouldn't touch shit. But do you know who else makes theme park rides? James Gunn. He's made 2, one for each Disney park. I'm sure they'd love him to make DC ones at Universal parks. So that's a whole different story. But yeah, I do think it's not an issue, because even if not yet anyways, because even if something happens and Superman Legacy underperforms, I know we can say very safely it's not going to be a bad movie, right? It's not going to come out until it's good enough to come out. They can't afford to otherwise. So it has to be very good as a baseline. And if it underperforms, if it's very good, it doesn't matter. They want quality to start. They have to get quality to start. I do think if it's word of mouth and the hype of it all and this new start. But keep in mind, by the time Legacy comes out, other projects are already happening, and other projects that haven't been announced yet will have been announced. It's going to be a very different situation on opening weekend for Legacy than what we know now. So, but even if they said that came out underperformed, well, there's 6 other projects already in development under James Gunn. What are they going to do? Like, not see that through? Or are they going to fuck with 6 different projects? And
again, I'm not saying like you're not right. I'm just saying I have seen crazier things happen where a lot of money was involved, and it's just, again, I'm being cautious. Right. I'm being cautious.
One of us can absolutely pull the rug out. Some crazy merger that goes wrong where not everything gets acquired by Universal, could change everything. You're totally right. Gunn may just lose interest. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
I'm gonna make westerns now or something.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going back to Marvel.
I'm tired of all this shit. I'm gonna make.
I don't know. I mean, right now, given everything we know, I think it's too big of a thing to not let them. You got to let them cook. This is the last sort of chance that DC work.
I think that's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, one of the things is what we want Zack to do when he let him cook, but of course they didn't let him cook. I mean, of course we got, what he was cooking before, but we didn't get the rest of what he was, we didn't get the final
Justice League 2 and 3.
Yeah, we didn't get those dishes, and then the dessert. But
I should say before I forget, because I was talking to Phil about it, I texted him and stuff. I don't know if it's confirmed, but it looks like that they are going to lead with the Rebel Moon getting a theatrical release, I believe.
Yeah, there was something that was mentioned. We don't know. We were actually kind of talking about that. I think I even talked about it with Brandon, because I even, I was like, because he even so like, of course he held back, and I'm like, yeah, you could say what you wanted to say, Brandon. I know you might have showed up at something. You might have showed up at something and did a little Q&A, but I was like, but of course, he couldn't say what he wanted to say, and I think Rob even knows probably some things too. But it's just like one of those things where it's like, I mean, obviously Zach, it's been quoted from Zach that he was very much selling it as like, oh, it's streaming and blah blah blah. But it's like, I am always like, yeah, he's being a good company man because they gave him free range to do what he wanted to do with this passion project that he's been thinking about for over 20 years. This is his Star Wars for sure. So it's like, when it comes to theatrical and way things are right now, I'm sure Netflix is like, we're not going to give it to you. But I'm hoping now that with everything that's happening with the strikes and everything and things getting pushed back, it's like, why not throw it out there, see what happens, put it out there. I mean, obviously it's not just a throw it out there and see what happens. There's a whole logistics of business and everything like that. But I just hope they give him some kind of, I want to see it on the big screen. I don't want to see it on my TV.
Same.
I mean, I will, but I want to see it on the big screen, just like I saw Army of the Dead. I saw it on the big screen before I saw it, watched it a couple more times on my TV. So hopefully that is true. And no matter what, Zach says, it's like, yeah, he's just, he wants you to see it on the big screen. Of course he does,
Yeah.
That's he's an old school filmmaker. He wants to see on the big screen. So
where I'm at right now, I was able to see, because what Netflix or at least from what I've seen, Netflix does very limited releases. So I was able to see The Irishman. I was able to see Army of the Dead, and I just recently saw David Fincher's The Killer before it came up to Netflix.
Oh wow, you saw that? Nice.
Oh, guys,
how was
if you love David Fincher, 10 out of 10.
That's all you got to say.
Yep, go see it.
All you got to say. I love David Fincher, so yeah.
But if you missed it in theaters, it will be out November 10th on Netflix. But it can't miss. It was pretty much perfect. Like that's I'm gonna leave it at that. No spoilers. Great movie. But that's what I want. Like where I'm at right now in Cape Cod, there's a theater in Brookline, Mass called the Coolidge Theater. I recommend it to anyone in the area to go to it. They have a massive old school theater, and they play. They play old movies, they play current movies, they play the Netflix stuff. Because that's where I went to go see The Irishman, and that's where I went to go see The Killer. Army of the Dead was a different thing for some reason. But anyway,
it was a certain theater chain,
certain theater chain. But regardless, like very very nice theater, and I lost my train of thought. But with Rebel Moon. What I hope is the case, if it's in Coolidge or if it's in a theater chain, I hope that they can give you the option to see either the I don't know. I don't know what Netflix's model wants to be, but I'm hoping that I have access to see the director's cut on a big screen.
I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if they do a theatrical release, it's going to be this 2 hour and 17 minute fucking PG-13. Yeah,
that's fine.
They wouldn't. I don't think they would release the R-rated 3 hour cut in theaters. I don't see that happening. I don't see
not with any real distribution anyways.
No.
Okay. Well,
that's a private Zack Snyder type event right there. But
that'll be the next full circle right there. But I wanted to bring up Ben submitted a super chat, and we'll wrap it up after this. He said, okay, what if
if it makes $1 billion, I mean,
and then no one ever questions it again at that point.
I wasn't saying that. I was saying
if it makes $350 million or $400 million, that's when discussions happen.
Yes.
But honestly, if it's 90% of Rotten Tomatoes and people are hyping it word of mouth, it's going to carry once it hits home video. It's going to carry that streaming service, and then you have all the building blocks you need. It doesn't. It can be loss leaders as long as it's quality. The worst thing that can happen is if people don't like it. If people who do see it love it, then you can build on that. That's positive word of mouth. You can stream on that. You can build on that. You can do home video. You can do re-releases, and then your other chapters are fine.
See, I've always when it came to let's go back to the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. It's like the third Spider-Man made a bunch of fucking money. It was huge at the box office, but people did not like it, and it was like one of those things where I was like, that was kind of interesting because it made a lot of money, but yet people just were like,
this is Amazing Spidey 2 as well. I made $700 million. But it wasn't $1 billion, and people didn't love it, and people didn't like that version of Sinister Six they were setting out. People were like,
exactly.
I don't know about that, and you can't do that. You have to have hype, right? So
exactly, and that's what I was getting to. It's like the same thing. Like, when it came to Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they were trying to establish that, and then people were just kind of like, you know. So it's not so much even like the box office that they're. I mean, like you said, it was like the fact that it's like, how are people gonna? What's the word of mouth? The word of mouth is so huge when it comes to this kind of stuff. I mean,
word of mouth is licensing deals, affiliates, and merchandise. Right?
No shit.
If no one likes your fucking movie, that stuff doesn't sell, and people don't want to buy into your. You think Acura's going to pay you $80 million for the next movie?
No,
to be on the premiere? No. You think you're going to get that $35 million Google Pixel 8 fucking product placement?
Oh my god!
In that bad sequel? No.
That's
no.
things that's part of the whole thing that people don't think about when it comes.
Of course, no one thinks about this. Do you know how much money Star Wars made before Force Awakens came out? That shit was bought and paid for before that movie even hit theaters.
Oh no, shit! With all the toys that came
10 billion, baby. Like it's yeah. So look, the thing is, like, people, we can ask all day: is Superman going to make 400 million, 500 million, 600 million? My question is, how much do the next 30 films make over the next 10 years? If that movie is good or bad. I don't care about $200 million opening weekend. What matters is what happens over the next 10 years, right? How much licensing, how much this, how much that? Do people going to come back for more? Does it get a sequel? Are people hyped for the sequel? Can they grow it? If they can't grow it, you start again. That's what matters. So, and the most important thing is your building blocks have to be fucking pristine. And I think Gunn and Safran might be the only ones who can do that under this crazy system right now. So,
people tend to forget that Breaking Bad was not a successful show till about well into season 2.
But why do people talk about it, Dave? Why do people tell people to watch it?
Because word of mouth. What? I don't know.
Because it's fucking awesome. People say you gotta watch the show.
There goes that too. Yeah, but it was like one of those things where it's like it like word of mouth. Like,
you know how I mentioned Apple, how like all their shows are bangers.
Yes.
Look how people are watching For All Mankind now and talking about it now versus fucking nobody watching season 1. Right? That show is like reinventing itself season to season. But maybe you guys haven't seen it, but you should. I'm telling you now, word of mouth, baby. Give Apple that money. Like
I haven't seen it, but my roommate is watching it and he loves it. So
exactly, it gets better and better. And it's like it didn't come out and get Game of Thrones numbers. Nobody watched it, but it's fucking awesome. Ted Lasso blew up, all word of mouth, baby. Like when that first came out. So it's the same thing. It's like you have to have quality. Quality is paramount. If they don't have a banger, and if it's not great, it all crumbles and they have to start again. And they know that. They've done that already. They've had that experiment. Marvel's had that experiment. So that's I just game theory and logic dictates that they have to have something amazing to even go forward with this plan. So, and if they don't, guess what? They already told us what they're going to do. They're going to keep working on it until they get it right, and it's not going to come out. So you're delayed to late 2025, maybe come a year later. Who knows? But I don't think it's going to happen.
Zach's going to come back and save it all. That's what
he's already written it, guys. We're already past this, but yeah. Yeah.
No, it's a crazy thing. It's going to be a crazy thing, but it is interesting. We're in an interesting part. We're in an interesting time, I guess you could say, right now with all the strikes coming off the pandemic, streaming services and everything. And we got 2 studios that are just like, I mean, I really hope, I hope that DC can get to that level that they, finally, I'm not saying they have to be like Marvel Studios level back in the 2010s, but I'm just saying, just get to that level where, and then I'm rooting for the MCU as well. It's like, I'm not saying like did everything that I enjoy from them. No, but most of it I did. It's fun. It's popcorn fucking superhero flicks and everything like that. But I mean, and I still, like I said, I enjoyed the Multiverse of Madness. I was like, yeah, Sam Raimi, give me more kind of thing. But I'm rooting for both studios with all, but it's just kind of crazy where we're at right now. I just didn't think that the Marvel Studios was going to like be in I guess you could say the shambles that they're in right now. But
best case scenario, like a year from now, we're chatting again, and like Superman's gonna come out and make $1 billion, and Deadpool 3 makes $1.5 billion, and everyone's just happy. And like they're getting 80, 90s and Rotten Tomatoes. Not that Rotten Tomatoes is fucking irrelevant, but you know what I mean. Generally, consensus is positive. And but the reality of that is, keep in mind, this Superman movie is like Snyder was telling you his vision for his films. He had an idea. You mentioned the Wonder Woman example. Yeah. That's really cool story. But with our comparisons to The Boys and Invincible, they have the freedom to do whatever the fuck they want. And it's all parody of the characters we're talking about from DC and Marvel, right? With Zack Snyder, like, if it's not getting $1 billion, not getting positive reviews, they're not going to let someone have a vision for Wonder Woman being a ruthless killer. And by the way, on the set of Justice League, they literally told us how the armor is designed to look like blood spilled all over her because she's destroying people. And then I wrote that in an article. People were like, "Oh my god, they made it blood red." They don't get Wonder Woman at all. I'm like, no, she's a warrior. You gotta listen. But I understand what they're trying to say because the Wonder Woman from the comics are in their head, that trinity of characters. Like Wonder Woman represents this, and they don't want that to be this like ruthless warrior, as much as that would make for a great movie. And I hope it can happen as an Elseworld story once they get their main Wonder Woman set up or whatever. Who knows, right? But that's why the Snyder stuff would never work unless it was $1 billion hits every single time.
I was telling Dave way back when we first met, and this was when I assumed that Warner Brothers had money at the time. Now they don't seem to have as much, but regardless, I said, as a DC fan, like deep down, like as someone who loves Zack Snyder, I said my main goal that I would have if I was the guy running things was to be, because it's not so much that it's even so much competing with Marvel, it's that DC has been around for even longer than Marvel has. So you have multitude of different fans who view the characters in multiple different ways. Like blood spatter or not, you have people that look at Batman and they see only Adam West. They exist, but that is a thing. Or you see them and they see only Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck or whatever. And that's just Batman. That's
the problem, right? What you're describing. Yeah. That's the hurdle. Everyone has this very specific vision. It has to be their vision.
Right. But I said to
Batman, yeah.
But I said to Dave, if I was to run the thing, I would have it so that everyone can kind of coexist to a degree. You know, you could do it where you're focused like on, you know, the main movies doing something. You have Elseworlds projects or whatever, but also at the same time, you could have, say, like you bring back Brandon Routh and you have him continue sort of the Chris Reeve story. You bring back Linda Carter, you have her continue like her version of the character. You have these characters come back, but you focus kind of like what Marvel is trying to do right now with their Disney Plus stuff, where they're actually trying to focus on the actual quality, and you do that. And then you let everything kind of exist and have their closure or have their moment in the sun. And you kind of you're kind of appeasing multiple fan bases, and everyone's kind of profiting, and it's not necessarily hurting any particular, you know, oh, Superman can only be this or Batman can only be that, you know, and it's like that's what I wanted as a fan. Of course, now it's not that easy, it's not that simple, and the money is, you know, more tight these days, so it's all over the map basically. But
yeah, in the ideal Safran James Gunn scenario, not only do they have to not deal with the Shazams and the Aquaman 2s of it all, but they wouldn't have these Elseworld stories at all. I think ideally what Zaslav wants is like, this is Batman, and that's his Batman for the next 10 years. Not Rob Pattinson and this other guy. This is Batman. These things are only still here because they existed beforehand and they're successful. That's why we have Joker Part 2 and the Batman Part 2. But had that not been the case, there would never be an Elseworld story. It would be one franchise.
Okay, on TV, so you might have that. So what about Constantine 2? You think that's going to happen, Keanu?
I have like an internal conflict about this project.
Okay.
Is it Francis Lawrence? We just asked him about this.
Yeah.
We literally just asked him about this.
He was talking to somebody about it. Yeah,
we asked him last week, I think, about this.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I read the transcript yet, so I probably have an answer somewhere.
Well, basically, what he told GameSpot, I guess, is basically like they have a script. They've been hashing out a story. It's going to be a hard R. He's been meeting with, of course, Akiva Goldsman, right? Yeah. And then, of course, Keanu. And they've been kind of hashing out, and they apparently have a story for like an older John Constantine for Keanu Reeves to play.
I think it totally can.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand Keanu Reeves' schedule, given that he allegedly has 5 fucking franchise things, plus his own personal IP.
No. John Wick's kind of over with.
It's not though.
Yeah,
it's not. He's coming back. No, but he's got other stuff going on too.
He's got like racing shit. I don't know. What is he like? I know he races like bikes.
He's got his band back together, man.
That's right. He's got a band. He plays bass in that band. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he has to save the timeline in the future. You know,
he's making
and all that.
He's making TV shows.
They're gonna do a Johnny Mnemonic reboot. I forgot.
I'd watch that.
So would I.
He's got the Berserker stuff. He's got
the Berserker.
That's right. I forgot
shows
about
and movies. They're gonna do live action. He's in that. That's him.
Right.
Which is a personal passion project, and he's involved with every step of that too.
Yeah,
so awesome.
that is a cool comic, by the way. I don't know if I finished it, but I was picking up the single issues and I was having a lot of fun. That was good.
I just think okay, Keanu, I mean, obviously it seems like John Wick. I mean, obviously there's still, I mean, the franchise, we still got the ballerina spinoff that's happening. We could obviously there could be a return of John Wick, sure, but Matrix, that's in a lull because obviously
that's done. No,
yeah,
Matrix
Resurrection didn't quite, even though I enjoyed it. But it's just like, if you have the chance to have Keanu, you better just, and it just seems like a Constantine movie. They could do a small budget, make it R-rated, and they could probably do some business with it. And I'm just really hoping that they can. I don't know. That's
you're going to see Keanu on something else in the not too distant future, but we'll talk about that in another show. But I do think it can happen.
Tell me it's not Marvel. Is it Marvel?
I'm not going to say anything. It's not Marvel yet, although he did turn down a role.
Yeah, I know he did.
He did turn around in Captain Marvel, actually.
Yeah.
He's supposed to play the Jude Law character. I say supposed to. He was offered it or something. Yeah.
He made a wise decision.
Also, I may butcher the name, but Gugu Mbatha Raw, who plays the what's-her-face in Loki, she was offered the Rambeau character in
No shit.
Marvel.
Oh.
Said,
no, wow, really?
For this. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they probably talk with everyone, but she was on one of the sheets anyways. But to the Keanu Constantine 2 question, I think James Gunn would totally fold that in as a character in his new version. Why not?
So?
Why not? It doesn't have to be Elseworlds, right? Can't he just be picking and choosing? Can't that be the Constantine of that universe if they wanted it?
I mean, it could be. I just didn't think. I just didn't think like he would actually do that since it was already established, and I thought he was going to build something new.
I'm not. I see him letting it be in Elseworlds, as he said. That Elseworlds
to what end? Is they going to spend 150 and hope to make 500 million off it? I'm curious. If with no sequel,
I mean, there's always like the thing of like having a John Constantine in that, an established dark universe. The Justice League Dark. I mean, we already have Swamp Thing that's going to be coming out by Mangold, right?
Do they want more Elseworld stories? It seems just confusing unnecessarily. And does that hamper their ability to have another Constantine? I
mean, look, I'm fine with Elseworld stories. I don't think it takes that much, honestly. I mean, I think people can tell the difference between different Batmans. I mean, just hear me out. Like, you have literally, you could just open it with a title card saying DC Elseworlds, and then do the title card for Joker.
I'm with you.
Whatever.
I want Elseworlds everything. Yeah, I'm totally down for that.
I'm just saying, I don't think general audiences would be that lost if we're going to indulge.
That's where I disagree.
Okay.
I think they're going to be super lost. I think the biggest complaint about all this crazy shit is how there's Superman on big screen, small screen, Batman here, Batman there. At one point, we had Keaton, Affleck, fucking Pattinson, and it's like, and George Clooney showed up, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, the people, and guess what? Nobody saw The Flash. Didn't work at all. So it's like,
I really thought that was going to work, but
general audience feedback is not like, wait, is that Iron Man or is this Iron Man? No, it's fucking Robert Downey Jr. Of course it's Iron Man for the next 10 years. It's like Batman's too big to have multiple Batman. Like, if that Reeves movie didn't come out, it would never come out under this new regime. So they're continuing what they already built because they have something that's working and they're going to continue it. But I don't, yeah.
I'm not positive like Dave. I think that the Flash movie didn't work because it sucked.
I enjoyed watching.
People just were like, "Oh, this is terrible."
Parts, but
yeah.
I mean, listen. There's one or two decent scenes. There's some decent acting. There's one or two good lines. I'm not saying the whole movie is awful, but the whole movie is awful. Like I think that movie didn't work with the audience because it didn't flow. It didn't work, But like, I got the concept of that's a different Batman. That's a different Batman. That's a Flash.
You did.
I get it, but I'm just saying.
Not us. I'm not talking about us.
I know you're talking general audience, but
which is 95% of the people I'm talking. Yeah.
I mean, look, if they've watched the other movies, I think that they got the general concept of it, of like what a multiverse means. I mean, it's referenced in The Flash. I assume that they know that this is a different timeline or this is a different thing. I'm assuming that concept came across to a general audience.
It is, yes.
But like, yeah, I think what would have made it more confusing was whatever Walter Hamada's plan was, which was to have the Batgirl and have Keaton take over as a Nick Fury guy.
Yeah,
that was ridiculous.
I don't know what the fuck that was, but like, yeah,
that
would have
wanted that too, and I was like, what? Why would you want that?
Yeah.
No, they got to start fresh, which is what they're doing. But the multiverse thing is, yes, I think a lot of people have had that shoved down their throats in every fucking franchise these days.
Yeah.
The problem is it's a negative connotation. It is an anti-selling point. If you say, "Oh, multiverse this, multiverse that," people are like, "Oh God, get over it." Nobody wants that shit. Nobody wants. Do you know what multiverse means? It means no stakes universe because you can just bring back someone else.
But wait a minute, isn't the Invincible season 2 tapping into that?
Have you watched how they handled that in Invincible season 2?
I have not.
Oh, interesting.
We haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So
Watch
they're
the
handling
first
it
4
well.
episodes, and there's
They're
reason people
handling it
say
well.
Invincible is awesome.
Okay.
No.
That's
just saying,
what I needed to know right there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
I'm just saying the multiverse for me like can be handled well. I think the Spider-Verse movies are proof of that. Like you want to talk about a multiverse movie, those are like the gold standard in terms of like handling multiple different versions of what's supposedly the same character.
Yeah.
Multiple different universes, multiple different storylines, all like it is like one of not just like one of the best animated movies, one of the best movies of the year, just because of how well it handles the story.
However,
okay.
Just like Invincible, that is a very isolated story. It is its own story. It is not an Avengers team up with 6 other spinoffs with other character stories that have to intertwine with that. It's also not built on a history where old actors are coming back. You know what I mean? So it's a different thing. Spider-Verse is leading into Spider-Verse 2, which is leading to Spider-Verse 3. Invincible is a niche TV show for adults that's in its own universe. That's it.
Okay.
It's not the same thing. It's not like a franchise with 17 films, which is old Batman actors and new Batman actors, right?
So what are we saying? Are we saying when we get to Secret Wars eventually, it's just not going to be about the multiverse anymore, or are we just gonna, or is it all going to be, I
think they're going to stay the fuck away from the multiverse once they resolve this. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying like the whole point of Secret Wars is to do like everything, right? I mean, I don't know what's going to get tackled in Kang Dynasty, and I don't know what's going to get tackled in Secret Wars. But like, what do you?
The stories we're seeing now, we're seeing the multiverse, and Loki's trying to give an explanation for how that can expand and contract, and how they can control that and make sense of it. I think Secret Wars is the end game of that, where the whole thing fucking implodes, and they pick, Battle World. They pick and choose this and that, and the end result is we have the new world, the new. In the comics, you'd be like 616 and Ultimates are together now, plus the best pieces of his other stories. And then, Reed Richards and his family will go seed the multiverse elsewhere. But I think the last thing people want is like people jumping through timelines and stuff again after Secret Wars. I think the whole point of Secret Wars is to
to wrap it up.
Sorry.
I was making a joke. By the time we get to Secret Wars, they're just not going to do multiverse. Period. Like it's just there. It's just nothing.
Yes.
That's what I was joking.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were asking if they're going to do another multiverse story beyond that, and I think
no. I got the idea that by the time we get to Secret Wars, that's it. That's wrapping it all up. But like, I was making a joke that it was just like there wasn't going to be any multiverse period because like no, it doesn't sell anymore. So, but no, like again, but I think that's why Kang Dynasty and that is so close to one another because they want to. I see Kang Dynasty, or at least my opinion, I see Kang Dynasty being a lot of the semi wrapping up and kind of explaining how all this like works with whatever other explanations we've gotten before then to that point, and then here's Battle World, and here's what we're gonna do, and then that's what Secret Wars is, gonna.
Yeah, I mean, think of Infinity War to Endgame. It's essentially it was built as a 2-parter. This is that for the multiverse. So yeah.
Now, do you see? That's the question, really, though. Too. Do you see Kang sitting on a throne in Secret Wars, or do you see it being? Do you see Doom? Because I mean, it's more. I mean, I only say it because of the original Secret Wars and Hickman's Secret Wars.
I love Hickman's. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That would have been the blueprint had they had the rights to like X-Men and had Miles set up and all these characters beforehand. But
right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it seems like Doom. I mean, again, I'm not saying that there isn't going to be any build up to Doom before then. It's just, I would be really weirded out if it's just Doom just shows up and that's just it, and they have to deal with Doom and they don't know anything about him. I think that'd be kind of weird. I don't think that would be a good way to go about it. But like, it just seems more like that's what they're going to be pointing to. And again, you could have it where you have Kang Dynasty and Kang is on the throne there, and then in Secret Wars, Doom is there instead.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing in Fantastic Four. I don't know if Doom is the primary in that.
I mean, the model seems to be that they hold the big bad now for like the second or the third movie, and the first one is, it might be fucking Mo Man for all we know.
That'd be sweet.
I would pay for that.
Sorry, I just got an Incredibles 2 like flashback because
there's a really great moment analog in Invincible as well. It keeps coming back, so you'll see him in season 2 as well. So
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Moment's a great idea. I'd totally watch that. Like full on costume and everything.
When you talked about Miles Morales, I was kind of wondering, like, how would they bring him into live action? Like, I mean, are they just gonna not touch what's happening over there? Even though that's already now with the last Across the Spider-Verse has tapped into MCU, and we've seen Garfield and Toby, and then of course Donald Glover Prowler.
It's right there. I mean, Prowler is set. He's ready to go. So all you need is he gets out of jail for a little time. He meets up with his nephew. Like, you make that a side story, and one of the I see them building up to Miles in this next trilogy, like as a side character.
Oh, he got
a question. The question is, though, what are they going to do with Holland? Is Holland going to die at the end of his next trilogy, or is he going to live, sidestep, and then sometimes jump in to mentor Miles while Miles becomes the new Spider-Man?
That would be
that's a financial deal to be had, but I think the vision is they keep him around long term in the background. He, we actually had this conversation about Miles just before you came on, I think, but where I was like, that was the plan, the ultimate Feige vision is you have Tom Holland for 20 years. He's like the extended Harry Potter, right? He's in for all these films, and he runs Parker Industries in the background, and Miles becomes Spidey, right? The Spidey. Yeah. So, but you don't do that in 4 or 5. You build up to that in the next trilogy.
That's
4. You need Spider-Man solo films that don't rely on.
You need his college years intact. You need him to at least meet Harry Osborn at some point, and then maybe because he knows about No Way Home, and then he's like, I don't know, just something. But
and the Osborns and Doom, I think, are the future of the MCU on Earth.
Yeah.
So,
dude, I mean, one of the things I wanted to bring up, like when we were talking about all the Spidey talk, I mean, and how the MCU is just kind of in shambles right now. I mean, I've been talking about it all year. It's like lean into the Spider-Verse. I mean, the fact that they were leaning so much, I mean, obviously Spider-Verse is multiverse as well, but I'm just like, it just seems like that's what's working. I mean, when it comes to everything, it just seems like anything Spider-Man seems to be like,
I think it's just because I think this Spider-Verse will lean on its own and just like, it'll have those cool connective threads and teases. And then the MCU will just pull
from it,
like the Prowler of it all and stuff like that. Yeah.
But
also,
do you think
the rules of the Spider-Verse are different than how the MCU is handling it? Like in terms of like how you glitch out in the wrong thing, you know what I mean? Like that happens a little bit with Loki right now, but
I was kind of like I was seeing that one,
but no one else. So,
do you see a future for Toby and Andrew?
As in, are they going to come back?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
They will come back. Okay. I don't know how much though.
Yeah. Obviously, yes, much, but yeah.
I had this in another live stream. I don't know if you watch other streams, Rob, but we had a whole like 20-minute convo about and again, not a lot. It doesn't need to be another franchise, but just one more Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie where it's like 20 years later, he's with MJ, he's teaching at college, maybe Miles is a student in his universe or something, but like all of his villains are on the raft now because it's been 20 years, but we bring Malkovich because he's even older now, so it's even better that he'll be Vulture.
Super old Vulture, yeah.
You have the opening scene is Mysterio like holding up like a place or whatever.
Played by Bruce Campbell,
and Bruce Campbell, and that's it, and it's done. It's like there's your closure on that, and like you do like a fun story, and more than anything else, you do not make. And I know it's funny because it's Spider-Man, but do not make Spider-Man a old loser who wants to quit or whatever the case is. You make it the opposite. You make him like, no, I'm still Spider-Man and I'm dealing with stuff now. I'm 20 years older and married and trying to figure stuff out, basically. Just one more. That's all you need. And then have it lead into Secret Wars or something. Maybe.
I love it. And I think this is when I was talking about Sony, this is what they should be doing. Like literally this. We should have the Amazing Spider-Man 3. We should have Tobey Spider-Man 4. Yes. And for fuck's sake, we should have way more Tom Holland films or villains that make more sense than El Muerto with Bad Bunny film that got canceled. Whatever the fuck they were thinking. Could you imagine announcing that before Spider-Man?
Oh my God. I couldn't even believe when they said, I'm like, are they serious? Well, and then we got Madam Web. I mean, that's already filmed. That's in the can.
That's supposed to be, there's something to that film though with the multiverse and all that kind of weirdness. So I don't know.
I'm hoping that it's something good.
They're so quiet on it. I can't get anything out of them. So
a lot of eye candy in that movie anyways. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just saying, like, yeah, I with the Bad Bunny, I was only confused because, you know, it's one thing if you're taking a character that's established, like Craven or something like that, but even El Muerto had like what, like three issues, I think, like not even like a run.
Yeah.
Oh, a big character.
Yeah, I was just really, really like, what's going on with that? Like, and also you run into major problems to a degree too, because like say even like an established character like Jessica Jones, you know, when she was on the Netflix stuff, her first season, while not perfect, was really good because it basically just adapted Alias, but.
Yeah.
After Alias in the comic books was The Pulse, which was her marrying Luke Cage and having a kid. So they couldn't do that. So they had to kind of figure out another story for her, and they didn't really know where to go. Even though they still had a great actress playing the character, it like the later Jessica Jones seasons weren't nearly as good because they didn't have the material to kind of work off of, you know? So it's like, yeah, so you kind of limit yourself when you take on like such a new character. You got to hope that whoever's working on the show is extremely creative and can work off that. You know, you're not going to get Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, working on the animated series every single time. You know, so yeah,
if only.
Yeah.
It's all crazy. But I think we should wrap it up on that note right there. A lot of great conversations, and everything's just kind of up in the air. I mean, my God. I mean, I don't know if the SAG after strike is going to end, but everything's just going to be pushed. Everything. I don't know. It's all just kind of crazy right now. But I want to thank, of course, Brandon Davis for being the featured guest tonight, talking, of course, all this stuff and catching up with him. Always great to talk to him. Thank you to Jordan. Thank you to Phil. And, of course, thank you to Rob. It's been a bit since you've been on. Always great to see you. You must have been talking to Steven about your camera setup because, my God, your shot looks really good. You're in the clear, everything else. You have the dream lens almost thing going on.
I haven't, but I've been thinking about that a lot. I don't have a real DSLR camera for this. I'm using this is an Elgato face cam. It's a webcam.
How are you doing the blurred background and everything? Is that like a filter or something? Man, it looks really good.
You can just change. Yeah. It's very basic. You can choose like the.
Okay.
As you can tell, I'm washed out. I have the key light set to minimum, and it still washes out. So if I had a real camera, I could do like lighting properly.
Yeah.
I have lighting.
It looks really good though, dude. I was like, damn, he must have been talking to Steven.
No, I got webcams. I have 2 more to try, but no, I want to get a real like Sony cam and do it properly at some point. But before your webcam needs, definitely go to Elgato. They have a prompter too. I was gonna set it up for this, I didn't have time, but the prompter is great because I can look at the camera now instead of looking at the monitor. You know what I'm saying? Because it's basically a monitor as well that you can put around your camera, so my eye level can be looking at you as opposed to like looking.
I know.
I'm always looking side to side. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always looking like this way, and my camera's over here. So. Wish I could but my way I have everything structured, not going to work that way. But anyways, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Paul. And feel free to, promote anything that you guys got going on right now.
Sure. Follow me on X, Twitter, Rob_Keys is Keyes. I don't really stream much anymore, but I'm going to be doing some cool stuff coming up soon. There's the Avatar game coming out. I know I mentioned the Avatar film.
Oh, that's right, huh?
It's kind of like the last big game of the year, so I'm going to be traveling to check that out. And then I'll tease something I've been very passionate about. It's more of a personal thing because like Brandon teased his wrestling thing. Yeah. I have been working with National Geographic on something for like 5 or 6 years, and I'm finally going to do it next month. So
nice.
It's a big week-long thing, so I'm very much looking forward to that. So I will share lots of that when it happens.
Good. Yeah. And feel free to come back on and talk about it and promote it, man.
Cool.
That's going to be interesting. Paul, anything?
I've got nothing to promote. I will be in Italy from the 9th to the 19th.
Nice.
I'm just visiting an old friend there, and I'm not sure what my availability will be. I don't know what my internet connection is going to be down there, or like being able to do this or not. So you probably won't see me for a little while, but I'll be out of the country. But other than that, if you guys want to reach me, I'm at PMickey1988 on Instagram and at Paul Panhook on Vero. So and Dave, thanks again for just having me on, man.
Oh, always, man. Always great talking to you. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you to Brandon, Jordan, Phil, Rob, and Paul. This has been another great discussion on the Vodka stream. We will talk to you guys later.
Paul, it's great meeting you.